I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now. Once our operation is finished, you can come back safely to your homes.
Hello, welcome. Today, the doomsday clock is closer to midnight because of the escalation of the conflict in the Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called his military forces' killing of the leader of Hezbollah a settling of scores. Meanwhile, Iran vows revenge. The US President Joe Biden is weak and helpless. The rest of the world is on the edge. It is 5:30 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria, 12:30 a.m. in New York City, 4:30 p.m. in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, and 7:30 p.m. in Nairobi, Kenya. Wherever you are joining us, welcome to another episode of 90 Minutes Africa. My name is Rudolph Okonkwo. My co-host, Chido Onoma, is on assignment. On our show today, your favorite, Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh, will help us analyze Nigeria today and what the future holds for the most populous country in Africa. As the 79th United Nations General Assembly rounds up in New York City, lawyer and consultant Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh will give us from his vast insights on matters of the West and the rest of us as it concerns Israel, the Palestine, the war in Sudan, Boko Haram, and IPOB in Nigeria, including the Igbo agitation for fairness in the Nigerian Federation, and a lot more. So please join us in welcoming to the show, Dr. Franklyne. So, welcome.
Well, thank you, Rudolph, for having me. And good evening to our viewers from everywhere. I'm glad to be back once again.
It's wonderful to have you. A lot of people are looking forward to this conversation because that's what we have here, conversation with interesting people, insightful individuals like you. So let me start with the situation today in the Middle East, or around the world, really. The conflict there is escalating and people are worried about what might happen next. What are you reading? What are you seeing from where you are?
Well, to be honest with you, I have never been more afraid of the state of world affairs like I am today. We have conflagration everywhere, starting from the Ukraine, where the Russians are very busy converting many Ukrainians to dead bodies, in spite of the propaganda that we are being bombarded with here in the West. The war in the Ukraine is not going well for the Ukrainians, and the West knows this. In the Middle East, with the killing of Nasrallah, the Secretary General of Hezbollah, a man who is well respected, in the axis that he represents, and a lot of Lebanese people who are in my circle of friends, are very much touched. We're very much touched by his killing. And this shows you that and Hezbollah is not a force that is not, it's not a simple militia. Hezbollah kicked the Israelis out of Lebanon in '82, and they fought another war in 2006, where Hezbollah declared victory. So they have known each other for quite some time. And Netanyahu trying to bomb his way to peace. I have never seen a country that has attained peace with the powers of the bomb. In spite of what people may try to tell you, it doesn't happen. Israel has started another onslaught in Syria at the moment. So fighting a three-pronged battle. In Gaza is still an unfinished business. Lebanon is now an open front, and then Syria. And then the Iranians, we don't know what they're going to do. But I sincerely believe that is a bait. They are trying to bait the Iranians into an all-out war, but Iran has been reticent. And we have to praise this reticence, because if they are to come into it, then we may, the Third World War may break out from there. Come to think of it, Iran has allied itself with Russia. Iran is a part of agitating to be a part of the BRICS. So if Iran gets into that now and Russia comes on their side, the United States will be forced, because they have already sent troops to the Middle East to defend Israel in case Iran comes in. So, and we'll be looking at an all-out conflagration. And it doesn't augur well for anybody. And it's going to affect all parts of the globe. And we'll be staring at the nuclear holocaust once more. So these are not the 60s. The major problem is that many people who were actually, present or alive during the 60s when all these things happened, many of them have died off. So the present crop of politicians that we have today are not quite aware how near we came to a nuclear conflagration when Khrushchev confronted Kennedy in Cuba. So today we are just playing with it. In Russia and Ukraine, the Russians have told us that if anything happens, if the West gives Zelensky the permission to use long-range Western weapons to attack Russia, that Russia will open up a nuclear option. And the Russians are not making just a threat. They mean it this time. And that's the major reason why Biden decided to stay action in giving that permission to Zelensky or to the Ukrainians. So the world is in a very precarious place at the moment. We are on the brink of a major disaster. What I'm pleading is that we should the United States should hold back Netanyahu. He should be held back. No matter what he thinks he's doing in the Middle East, you cannot murder your way to peace. He's endangering every other Israeli. And you are creating a bunch of enemies. You kill Palestinians. Over 40,000 Palestinians recorded are dead. 18,000 children. The West, and then every major Western country is financing and supporting this genocide in Gaza. And what they are telling every other person is that the international law doesn't matter. Okay, if you have power, we can endure whatever you do. And we are opening up a can of worms that will not end with Israel. So I wouldn't know how the West is going to look at it someday when another powerful nation arises and supports other dictators to attack Western allies and Western interests, in such a haphazard manner. So the United Nations has become a toothless bulldog. Okay, United Nations has abdicated every responsibility it has to its charter itself. It's just a talk show where everybody just goes and makes noise, and then but there's nothing. Okay, how many United Nations workers have been killed in Gaza? How many journalists? How many children? Children. Nobody can tell me anything if the collateral damage, whether Hamas hides in the civilian population. There are rules of war. There is the Geneva Convention, and Israel has torn this convention to shreds. So, and what are the safeguards? So, it is Israel today doing what they want. If another country rises to do what they want, what is going to happen? Okay, so these are the issues that one looks at critically. And am I still on?
You're on, yeah. I can hear you.
Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Oh my God. Okay, I can't even.
Okay, you're finally out. All right. So we're having a conversation with Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh. We are going to talk about the situation in the Middle East. From there, we will get to New York and talk about the United Nations General Assembly. where Nigeria's vice president represented Bola Tinubu and the demands of African countries for a place at the United Nations permanent place at the United Nations. We're also going to come to Nigeria and talk about the situation in Nigeria. We are going to celebrate 64th Independence Day. On Tuesday, we want to talk about how far we have gone in Nigeria and where Tinubu is taking the country to. So I urge you to stand by while our guest, while he fix, I think he will fix his computer, and then we will continue with the conversation. Once again, thank you for joining us on 90 Minutes Africa. This is Rodolfo Okonkwo.
For the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you. It's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now. Once our operation is finished, you can come back safely to your homes.
Welcome back. I think our guest is back with us. Thank you so much. I know it happens. Technology sometimes they fail us. So you were talking about. I think I wanted to know what you were talking about. United Nations being helpless, and I wanted to know from you, what do you think about the role that America is playing in all this? Oh, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself?
Thank you. The role of the United States, everybody, the rest of the world is on one side, and the United Nations and the United States and Israel are the ones that have vetoed almost every United Nations resolution on Palestine. So many countries in the world today are not taking the United States seriously anymore as an umpire in the Palestinian-Israeli issue. So they believe that America is just paying lip service to justice. And this may come back to haunt the United States. But we know IPAC has gotten hold and control of every major American politician on both parties. So that's the major problem. So in the United Nations, the last United Nations that just ended in New York, you saw leaders of many countries standing up on the podium to tell United States to have face. You cannot be giving weapons to one side in a conflict, and you are telling us that you're looking for peace. If the United Nations cannot use her leverage on Israel to hold back Netanyahu, I don't know what that's whether that is friendship. A friend will tell you when you are stepping your feet into pieces of shit, but the United States is not doing that at the moment, and Netanyahu seems to be endangering the whole region. Okay, in the name of trying to murder his way to peace. I don't think that is a strategy that will work long term. Because the more you kill Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, these people have kids. Their kids are going to become eternal enemies to the state of Israel. And how can you survive, weapons, no matter how much? There needs to be peace. You can never murder your way to peace. You can never murder your way to security. It's never.
Has any country done that in the past? Has it been in history?
Study the history of ancient Rome. Rome believed that it could murder its way to greatness. Rome was doing that until a bunch of ragtag tribes in Germania, led by Arminus, challenged Rome and destroyed the Roman Sixth Legion, and that was when Rome started to decline. So Rome conquered Egypt. Rome conquered the British Isles, the Balkans. Rome was the master of the world. People don't read history. Everything that the United States is doing today, Rome has done it and excelled, using brutality to imprison and peoples and nations and tongues and what have you. But a ragtag army, a bunch of people said, we are not going to take it any longer. In the Teutoburger forest here in Germany, very close to Osnabrück, there was this battle where Rome suffered a terrible defeat. And that was the beginning. If you read Gibbons, that was when Rome started to decline. So, empires, history is littered with empires that believe that they're eternal, and they are just footnotes to history today. So this is the major reason why, I was just reading a book written by Barbara Tuchman, which she called The Match of Foolery. Okay, so you will see so many nations making decisions that actually leads them to infamy. Okay, the Turks murdered the Armenians in a genocide that was recorded in history. Hitler tried to murder the Jews. And today, many people, even the United Nations International Court, say that Israel is committing a plausible genocide in Palestine. That the people who escaped genocide would be to be accused of committing a genocide in the 21st century is unheard of. And this should not happen. This should not be allowed to happen by the rest of the world. And that's why the United Nations is there. But the United Nations doesn't seem to be taking its role seriously, because the major powers, the United States, which is a unipolar power today, has decided to take, a side in the conflict, and then is supporting one side with weapons and money to murder the other side. And the Arab nations are there doing nothing, supporting even their slaughter. Okay, that it took only South Africa, an African nation, to stand up and speak out for morality and justice. That shows you something. I am telling you, this is the beginning of a new era. Europe and the West have lost every moral credibility. They are never, ever going to stand before the rest of the world and tell any other country about human rights. They have just lost it. And this is the beginning of it. And it's really a pity, because we had a world order that, anyway, served the Western interest, so to say.
Now, during his speech at the United Nations, Netanyahu made reference to the Bible, quoted Moses, and I was listening to him, and I was wondering what he's doing today in the Middle East. If you read about it 200 years from now, 2,000 years from now, it won't be different from what happened in the Bible.
Exactly. But read Noam Chomsky. Chomsky said that the Bible is one of the most genocidal books and documents ever written. He referenced Amalek when Hamas committed the atrocities on October 7th. He said that, I remember what Amalek did to you. What did Amalek do? God ordered Saul to slaughter. Their God ordered them. God is supposed to be a force of good, but he ordered them to slaughter, commit genocide on another people. Okay, and not take anything. So the Bible is filled with genocidal. It's one of the most genocidal books ever written, and that many other scriptures of many religions are that way. And so that's why many people who understand the way the world was don't take those documents seriously, because they are just books to justify colonialism, and that's what it is. So he citing the Bible is just a tradition that every maniacal sociopathological conqueror will equally cite a book that favors him. So it's just normal. It's human nature. So it's not exclusive to Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm. No, I just thought about it, and I was wondering. Now, looking at the United States, there's an election coming up here in November 5th, and we have two options, Trump or Harris. For those of you outside the United States, what are you looking at in terms of where the world will go if it's Trump or if it's Harris? What is your assessment of that?
Yeah, well, before I take that question, a lot of people have asked me, why do you think that United States is supporting Israel. The Israeli project is a colonial settler project, and the United States of America was a colonial settler project. The Europeans that came to America murdered the American Indians. In fact, drove them to extinction. Okay? So, and almost all the major Western countries that are supporting Israel in their onslaught in Gaza have one time or the other in their history committed genocide on the people. The French, look at what they did in Algeria that prompted people like Franklyne writing The Wretched of Earth. Is it the Germans? Look at what they did in Namibia to the Herero tribes. They nearly wiped them out. And then what they did to the Jews. So just mention one. The Americans, the British, look at what they did in Kenya during the Mau Mau uprising. Look at what they did in India. Winston Churchill was labeled by Tariq Ali, one of the greatest, Pakistani writers, as a genocidal maniac. So over 20 million Indians died under the British Raj. So almost all the countries that are supporting the Israelis in Gaza have one time or the other in their history committed genocide. So it's not one does I don't see so that they are supporting that is equally a part of the heritage of history that they have had themselves. So when we talk about the American elections, America is a very important country. Everybody knows that. America is the sole superpower today. China is rising. China is not yet there where the United States is at the moment. The Russians declined after 1989 when the Berlin Wall fell. Okay, so where the United States is, with great power comes great responsibility. But it does seem that, since Eisenhower warned the Americans in the 50s before he left office to beware the military-industrial complex, that every other, Noam Chomsky said something important. You may hate him, you may like him, but he said something that nobody has been able to refute, and that is that every American president since the end of the Second World War is a war criminal. I have not seen anybody who stood up to challenge that or prove him wrong. The facts and evidence is there. So today, the world, everybody looks onto America come November 5th, who is going to be get to the White House. A lot of people hate Trump. I can understand that. For me, Trump is an uncouth racist. A lot of people think that Kamala Harris is a neophyte who doesn't know the nitty-gritties of politics. But the major things that will determine what happens in the next years is Ukraine and the Middle East. And this is where we are trying to look at the candidates to see what are their positions about these two regions of the world. Kamala Harris and the Biden administration were the ones who started this war in the Ukraine. The Russians were baited. Anybody who knows anything, if you read Mearsheimer, read Jeffrey Sachs, read any analyst or any intellectual that knows anything about Ukraine, it started in Maidan in 2014 when the CIA orchestrated a coup that overthrew a Russian-friendly government. And the Russians have always said it. The West made promises to them in '89. James Baker and Genscher, the German foreign minister at that time, made promises to the Russians that if they allowed the unification of Germany, that NATO will not extend an inch eastward. These were our promises, Western promises. But we went back on that. Even Yeltsin complained. Yeltsin made a point that Russia is not Haiti. So in 2008, Putin came to Germany and presented a paper in the German parliament where he called that Russia and Europe should enter into the same security architecture. He was laughed at by many European and American politicians. So with the United States thinking now we are the world power, the neocons in Washington believe that we can do with Russia whatever we want. But the mistake they made is that Russia has the greatest number of nuclear weapons in the world. It's not a country you toy with. At a point, they say, we don't want NATO weapons on our borders. And you can understand the Russians. Because Ukraine, the plains of Ukraine, they don't have any natural defense on that line. The plains of Ukraine was the place exploited by Napoleon in the 1800s to invade Russia. It was the same that was exploited by Hitler to invade Russia. So the Russians have legitimate security fears that we should, if we had respected that, then there wouldn't have been a war in the Ukraine. But some people will say that Russia marched on and then invaded Ukraine in a war of aggression. Then I'm asking these people, would the United States allow Mexico to station Chinese weapons or Russian nuclear weapons in Mexico? Or would they do that? The Cuba, Kennedy nearly went to the mattresses with Khrushchev over Cuba until Kennedy, being a wise man, was advised, pull back the missiles from Turkey. And then Khrushchev could save face and pull back the missiles from Cuba. And that was how the world was saved, because we were very close to a nuclear annihilation. But today, I don't think the heads, the warmongers in Washington and on both sides are not saying this. I don't want my children dying in a nuclear holocaust. And that's why there really needs to be peace. Europe and America, they convoke a peace conference in Geneva without the major party to the war, without the Russians. How does that work? Okay, if you're talking peace, that was one thing that made me support Obama in 2008. He said, we will talk to our enemies. We will negotiate with even Iran without preconditions. And he did that. And he reached an agreement and he ran a nuclear deal, which Trump tore when he got to office. So a lot of people don't follow these chronologies that, to see how politics could be used as a force for good. So Ukraine and the Middle East are the two burning points that could lead to major catastrophes if not well handled. And I doubt that the Democrats are, about to do anything to Ukraine. All of them support Israel. They don't care about what Israel does with the Palestinians. Even if it's genocide or ethnic cleansing, they don't care. They support Israel, what may. But I think, our consciences should prick us to understand that Palestinians are human beings as well. Okay. And then Trump is the only person who is talking about negotiating with Russia. And that's where I think, even no matter how much I hate him, I will give his politics a chance in this regard. At least save us from a nuclear annihilation. Because I don't believe that the Russians are bluffing when they tell us that they're going to use nuclear weapons if their security is threatened. That's their nuclear doctrine. And anybody who knows anything about the Russians knows that Putin means business.
Now, I saw this picture in the New York.
That was it. Okay, the Yalta conference.
Yeah.
Churchill, that was Roosevelt and Stalin.
Yes.
And now is this okay?
This is
Putin, Trump, and Xi. Okay.
So the idea is that next year it will be 80 years since the first
meeting in Yalta,
where they decided on how the structure that we see now in the New World Order, where they share the world essentially. Even the United Nations that we have today, this was where they agreed on.
It was hatched.
Yeah. So now these are the people, if Trump wins next year, these are the people that will decide the new world order, because there has to be a new world order. The old one is collapsing.
Of course.
So what do you think about this this new world order that these three men will come up with?
Okay. Well, we can only speculate at this point.
Yes.
Because Trump is not yet.
Of course.
Because I have been asking myself, why all these attempts on Trump's life? I don't like that guy, but why the attempts on his life? Is it engineered, or is somebody actually trying to eliminate him? And if somebody is trying to eliminate him, then that's a big deal. And it's a big deal because he represents a danger to some interests. Whatever that interest is, I don't think that a politician should be eliminated because of his political views. He should be voted out. If people don't like him, they should vote him out. That's what democracy is all about. But the point lies in the fact that the world order. If you look at Churchill was a colonialist par excellence. Okay, the Americans never had colonies anywhere outside. They had Philippines, Guam, Puerto Rico, and all the rest of them. Well, America has a history of stealing lands because of the war. America itself was stealing from the American Indians. And Stalin was just a local thug, a dictator over Russia. Okay, that took over when Lenin died in a palace, a coup. He eliminated his rivals. If you look at those guys, they were in a world where they faced German aggression. German aggression because the Germans defeated in the First World War. were placed under a heavy burden by the victorious allies in the treaty that was signed at Versailles in France. So the Germans were paying reparations, and they hated it with every inch of their blood. So they were screaming for somebody to save them. That was the mistake. You know, if you take away everything from a man, you have set him free. So that's the major reason why the people dealing with the Palestinians, the way they're dealing with them, should read history. Everything was taken away from the Germans after the First World War because they lost. And they were being forced to funnel their resources to pay war reparations to the victorious allies. And what happened? That hatched a kind of hatred and a kind of resentment in the German population that they were looking for somebody to save them from that. And that was when a charlatan like Adolf Hitler, when he rose, they voted for him. People forget that Adolf Hitler was elected chancellor, what the Germans call chancellor, in a democratic election. It was German frustration that propelled Adolf Hitler to power. And then he set out to deal with those allies that actually, he believed did Germany in. He started with France, conquered all of Europe. So he threatened the British imperial hold on the world, the then known world, because it was Britain that ruled from sea to shining sea. It was a mighty empire that was in almost 191 countries in the world, conquering or fighting a war in these countries. So they faced the might of German anger and the proficiency of German science and technology. The Germans conquered the whole of Europe and built an Atlantic wall. And they were a formidable threat. If the Americans didn't come into the war, Germany would have been ruling all who have been speaking German today. So this is what people forget. And that's why history is so very important. Okay? So that you don't do a people in, because if you do them in, you take away everything from them. And if you take away everything from any person, that person becomes a danger to you because he has nothing to lose. And you don't fight a man who has nothing to lose. And that's where we are placing the Palestinians. And sometimes I think the Russians. You have to give a man, Sun Tzu, in writing the Art of War, you have to give your enemy a room to retreat, to save face. And if we are confronting the Russians, we may end up annihilating our globe. So the major problems we are saying, these men, if they are going to determine a war, we know America is a quasi-empire. It's not even the president that governs or rules. It's the bureaucracy, the State Department. They're the ones that craft and tell the president what to do. Okay? Xi manages China well. The Politburo is in charge. Okay? And they are going to fight. Each of them are going to fight for their interests. I don't believe the Americans are going to surrender their interests because Trump is in office. Or that the Russians, right now, Russia has built a formidable and invincible army due to their war in the Ukraine, that it will be very difficult for this genie to go back to the bottle. And then anybody that underrates the Russians at this stage is making a very big mistake. And my problem is, there is one thing there, drug dealers on American streets will always tell you: you don't consume your product. It seems that the West are consuming their own propaganda. If you live in Europe and if you are circulating the circle I circulate in, top politicians in Germany, top politicians in Europe will tell you, we have created a monster. They know what is happening. They know that Russia has become formidable. And we pushed them to that war. And the Chinese know that they are the next target. That if the Democrats come back to power, that there's going to be a war anytime soon between the United States and China. So the Chinese are getting ready. So, and China has the largest population on earth. So I don't know. So we should start. The old world is finished. With Middle East and Russia, the old world is gone. So whatever is going to replace it, since nature doesn't allow a vacuum, I don't know. I can only speculate. But I don't think that any of these countries is going to surrender its interests to the other, to placate the other. But that's the only true way to peace. Compromises. We have to compromise on certain levels and then stake our claims on certain other levels. That's the only way we can survive together as the human species. Otherwise, we are going to annihilate each other. And don't forget, China has nuclear weapons. The United States has nuclear weapons. Russia has nuclear weapons. And what are we, it's just a zero-sum game. So that's where my fear lies today. I don't know whether any other person is afraid the way I am. Maybe I'm too much exposed to information about what is happening to be really, really afraid. of what the future holds.
Mm. All right. So during the United Nations General Assembly, our Vice President Shetima spoke for the country, and one of the things he called for is for the two-state solution for the state of Palestine, and he also called for forgiveness of debts for the international community to forgive our debts. What do you make of his speech?
Well, first of all, on his call for the state of Palestine, that has been standard United Nations policy. The United Nations agreed on a two-state solution. The only people, the two countries, United States and Israel, are the ones blocking the two-state solution. It was equally American policy, even till today. They have not rebuked that policy. It's American policy, two-state solution. So Nigeria is equally Nigerian foreign policy, two-state solution, Palestinian state. And the Israelis are making it impossible for that to come to realization because Gaza has been obliterated. And then the West Bank, Israeli settlers are now making a move to grab as much land from the West Bank as possible. So the United Nations came to the conclusion that there will be a two-state. There's a partition along the 1967 lines, and the Palestinians will have their state with capital in East Jerusalem. So, and every other year, the United Nations has always voted on this point, and it remains standard United. So Shetima was not saying anything new. That's Nigerian foreign policy since 1973, when Nigeria joined OPEC countries in placing an embargo on oil to the West after the Arab-Israeli war. So it has always been standard Nigerian policy. On his call for debt forgiveness, well, here I am a little bit. Why would Nigeria call for debt forgiveness after Obasanjo in 1999 paid off Nigeria debts to the Paris Club? We paid $18 billion to the Paris Club, and today our debt has skyrocketed. I don't blame Tinubu's administration because he just inherited. The major bulk of our debt was incurred by Buhari's administration. Obasanjo's administration really reduced Nigeria's debt to almost nothing. Yar'Adua came and Jonathan came. They raised it a little bit, but under Buhari, it exploded. And this government used the ways and means to print more naira than necessary. And Nigeria is suffering, from the effects of that today. So my problem is that Shetima came from APC. APC is the same government that ran up these debts to where they stay. So why are they now running around pleading for debt forgiveness? What if the debts are forgiven? What are they going to do with it? So that's the major problem. But on the other hand, there was this movement that called for reparations to African Americans. It's equally a movement that Abiola championed while he lived. Okay, so Africa has equally suffered a lot at the hands of the West. And then, this when you start talking about the West and the rest of us, people will say, when I start making this case, they say, does Africans don't have agency? Well, if you know the weight of imperial history and colonial history, you will anybody that's making the argument of agency will have to take 2 steps backwards to actually appraise his analysis. Africa has actually suffered a lot, and Africa is still suffering the effects of colonialism. Okay, every country in Africa was created by the colonial masters, apart from Ethiopia. Every other country, we were creatures of imperial convenience. That's why our borders are on straight lines. That's the only place in the world that happens. People will equally say, after all, Germany was created by the Romans. Yes. Okay. And the amount of resources that has been taken out of this continent is still being taken out of this continent today. I was in an argument with somebody, and I told him that what African leaders told is peanuts in comparison to what is being taken out of Africa by the West every other day. Go to Congo and see what is the genocide happening there. Over 5 million Congolese are dead at the moment. Okay, and nobody talks. You don't even hear anything about it in the Western media. The Sudan, there's a genocide going on in the west of Sudan, in the Darfur area, due to the power struggles between the MSM, and the rapid RSF there. So nobody, it doesn't make any, and Africa is still suffering the effects of the ecological devastation due to global warming, which we contribute only 0.4% to. But we are suffering the maximum effects of it all. So it's callous for any Nigerian president to go to the world today and ask them for debt forgiveness. But debt forgiveness is what the West should actually consider, if they in the spirit of ecological justice. Okay, so
now,
that's the way.
I wanted you to talk about the other issue he raised, which was Africa should get 2 places on the United Nations Security Council, permanent places with veto power. Would that happen?
It's not going to happen. Nobody's taking that seriously. The United Nations, as I see it now, is going the way of the League of Nations. Before the Second World War, the League of Nations is what the United Nations is today. It's modeled after that blueprint. The League of Nations stood there when the Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. And I remember the brilliant speech delivered by Emperor Haile Selassie, where he asked the world, what should I tell my people? That a nation is coming to invade my country, that my country should become his colony. And the world kept quiet. And that was the beginning of the end for the League of Nations. So the United Nations is going the way of the League of Nations. So Nigeria wanting Africa wanting a place. Africa should let that thing implode, because it's imploding on its own weight. The Americans have made sure that the United Nations is going to implode. And that's why there's going, the possibility of a war is nearer than ever. Because some countries in the global south, together with Russia and China and India, have seen the United Nations is not working for them. They're from BRICS. They have seen that the world order that was created at the Bretton Woods in the 1940s, 44, after the Second World War, towards the end of the Second World War, was used to enthrone the American dollar as the primary currency. And the United States have used this currency, the power of this currency, with the power of their military, to enslave almost all the countries on the surface of the globe. So they want out. And now, because of that, that's why the United States is bent on weakening Russia, because Russia is the major driver of BRICS. And after Russia is China, because these are the major planks of BRICS. So this is what is happening. So the United Nations has lost every moral credibility. With the United Nations, which was founded to stop wars, to stop us going back to the trenches of the Second World War, could stand by, and the war is happening between Russia and the Ukraine and nothing is done, could stand by, and Israel is committing genocide, what the United Nations courts called a plausible genocide against the Palestinians, then it has outlived its usefulness. So Africans coming late to the game to say we want 2 permanent seats, it doesn't make sense to me. Okay, and besides, nobody's going to give you a place. The powers have reserved the places for themselves. They created it, so they're not going to let you come to tell them what to do. After all, Joseph Stalin asked a question when he was told that the Pope is a powerful. He said, "How many battalions does the Pope have? So how many battalions can Nigeria raise to challenge American nuclear arsenal or Russian nuclear or the French for a place in the Security Council? We will just be there, errand boys. We don't need it. We should come home and face internal problems and revamp our education and try to create what America created, like DAPA, where we should channel and harness the powers of science and technology to develop our country. When we get there, where India and China is today, the world will take us seriously. We don't need to go and ask them, you must. It's just like a beggar coming to, you can never be on an equal pedestal with the man you are begging to forgive you your loans.
Now, just for the sake of it, if they are going to give Africa maybe a permanent seat that won't have veto power, do you think that if there is 2 spots that Nigeria will get it in Africa?
I will want that Nigeria comes home and takes care of it. Nigeria is an open soul of the continent, like Wole Soyinka said. Okay, we have been a disappointment. What did we do with all our potentials? We have wasted and frittered them away. Today, ordinary Nigerians cannot even feed. Okay, and then we are screaming for a permanent seat. The price of dollar to the naira has, tripled, and people are feeding from the garbage dumps. So we have internal problems to contend with, and that's what our rulers should start taking care of before that country implodes on their faces, because they are not seeing what is happening, I believe.
Yeah, one more question before we leave the United Nations. Every year we complain about the delegates that we come here with, and this year I heard that the wife of the president and some governors' wives were here. You know, and the budgets, we don't know how much they spend. But what is the solution to this? And there are stories about European leaders coming in and moving in, sharing vehicles, and but African leaders, especially Nigerian leaders, move along as if they are United States of America in terms of how they carry themselves. What should we do to change that approach to conferences, not just United Nations conference, but when they go to other conferences, they carry themselves the same way?
Well, when Chino actually said that the trouble with Nigeria's leadership, he added a caveat there that many people don't even mention. He said that that is the failure of Nigerian leaders to rise to the responsibility of personal example. Okay, so how can people be frugal with resources when the president is very busy buying a new jet, and people are hungry, and he's bought a yacht? Okay, and they're building a $21 billion naira mansion for the vice president, as if to say that he is homeless. So every other person takes a cue from the president, and then they come and fritter resources away. And then, I don't know. A friend of mine said there's something wrong with the black man. I said, it's not true. Okay. In Europe, people are bound to fritter resources if you give them the opportunity. If the laws have teeth, people will stop doing that. But what do that's what we get when we have state capture. Nigeria has been captured by a little cabal that are there just to feed from the common trough and then stuff that to their private estates. That's what is happening. So there's never going to be a change. Those guys are going to have a revolution someday on their hands. And this is what happened in 1789 France. Okay. The people were dying of hunger. And allegedly, Marie Antoinette was reported as saying that if they don't have bread, they should eat cakes. Okay. And that resulted in the people storming the Bastilles and then cutting off the head of the French nobility. And we have real echoes of that spread across Europe. And every other royal house took notice that if we don't change our ways, our subjects are going to cut off our heads. And that's when Europe started. People will say that there are 3 R's that led to where Europe is today: the Italian Renaissance, the the French Revolution, and the German Reformation. So actually, this is what we need in Nigeria. We need a renaissance in our education. We need a revolution. These politicians, they are joking with the anger and the hunger of the people. Okay, and then we need a reformation of our religions. Look at even the pastors have joined the fray in exploiting the people. Anyway, what's a good shepherd? A good shepherd is someone who fleeces his flock. So they are there just to fleece their flock. That's what they do.
All right, coming home, I was on my way coming home, and I saw this picture. That is, we are looking at Gowon, former military leader in Nigeria, visited by the last president of Nigeria. This was, they said, in his residence in London.
In London, yeah.
Of course, Buhari also has been hanging out in London. And I'm thinking, is there anywhere else in the world where their leaders, former leaders, will end up living in another, especially the country that colonized them? And what are we? When will this message get across? Who are these people? Yeah, go ahead, help me.
Okay, the point, when I tell people that many African leaders are conceptually colonized, these are colonial houseboys. What do you expect? They damage their country for good measure, and then they run to their colonial masters who put them in power, because I tell you, none of these guys will have smelled power without the MI5. Okay? So they know who to thank for them coming to power. Go on. How did he come to power? A counter coup in 1967, July 67, that killed Ironsi and all the rest of them. It was planned by the MI6 and given to him. The British ambassador in Lagos was in charge of it. Buhari, how did he come to power? Okay, the same. So they knew who to thank, and then they destroyed Nigeria for good measure, and then they will run up here, and then they are not even ashamed. This shows you the kind of mentality. If these people, if we could call these people leaders, little wonder we are where we are today. Little wonder. One once boasted to the world that Nigeria's problem is not how to make money, but how to spend it. And then we started importing every kind of stupid item from the rest of the world. We are still even importing toothpick from China today. It was under his administration. He sat atop an oil boom. What did he achieve with it? Nothing. Nothing. Are you talking about Buhari? Don't get me started. This guy was praised. I had to go to war with my bosom friend Pius at this army of blessed memory because of Buhari. Pius was supporting me, and I told him that this guy, we have seen his first incarnation as a military leader. What did he achieve? Imprisoned Tunde Thompson and Ndokera, but journalists for reporting what the truths were. Killing Ogedemwe and Bartholomew Owo with a retroactive degree. Left Nigerian economy in shambles. That even his inner circle decided to overthrow him. And then they told us he was incorruptible. Was Shagari not incorruptible? But he was the one that superintended over crooks like Umar Diko and his presidential task force on rice. And then they thought he's incorruptible. When he came to power, Nigeria has borrowed more money. Okay? The guys around him were very busy stuffing their pockets with our money. And this guy would just stand up and come. He made a promise during campaigning that he will cancel health safari if he becomes president. Now, what happened when he became president? He comes to London to treat his ear infection. And he's not even ashamed. Telling the whole world that the health minister in my country, I have passed a vote of no confidence on it. An African leader. And these are the people we'll call leaders. And tomorrow they will call him a statesman. And then if anybody criticizes him, his brothers in the north will say, he's our brother. You're correct. Africa, we have a long way to go with this kind of mentality. And it's shameful. Angela Merkel governed Germany for 16 years. He retired. People don't see him in public anymore, but he's quietly in his village in Germany because he made sure that his charge was wonderful when he left. Caesar Augustus said, I met Rome a city of bricks and I left it a city of marble. Which of the Nigerian leaders can make such a statement?
So that brings us to Tuesday, when Nigeria will celebrate a 64th independence anniversary. The president has promised that it's not going to be a big celebration, low key. What is your assessment of Nigeria at 64?
A 64-year-old baby. Anyway, Nigeria is not too old. All the countries we are looking up to, we know Africans, we have a tendency of being in a hurry. Almost all the countries we are comparing ourselves with took time, actually, to get to where they are. America is 270-something odd years today, and America didn't become a world power from day one. They had their teeth in problems. But my problem is that we don't need to reinvent the wheel. That's where Nigerian leadership failed. We need to look at other countries. Singapore did that. And Singapore is a first-rate, first-world nation. The Indians did that. Reformed their education. The Chinese did that. Reformed their education. Although China is a very ancient civilization, China and India are ancient civilizations. But after colonialism with the British, and China, after the Opium Wars, reformed itself. And when Mao came to power, although Mao was a dictator who was accused of killing many Chinese people, but he led at least an agricultural revolution. Let us feed ourselves first. Which Nigerian leader can say that he has established or introduced a reform in any sector that has continued and led Nigeria to being self-sufficient in anything? None. Obasanjo introduced OFN in 1977, Operation Feed the Nation. And many people accused Obasanjo of diverting the funds to his own personal farms, OFN, Obasanjo Farms Nigeria. Okay, so, and these are the kind of things we see. Which Nigerian leader has a policy that we could still look back to and say that this led us a bit farther where others could build on? None. Ajokuta Steel has not produced a single steel, but it has been a beehive of the greatest amount of corruption ever. Nigeria had 4 refineries, non-refined crude in our backyard. But if you look at the fact that Biafran scientists were refining crude oil in the bushes during the war under heavy bombardment, but today in peacetime, Nigeria could not refine petroleum. And then NNPC has to borrow money to buy 20% stake in Dangote's refinery. And even at that, they are trying to, hinder Dangote from refining and then getting crude, refined petroleum products to Nigerians. So this shows you that the cabal that has gotten hold of Nigeria is not interested in letting go anytime soon. Only Nigerians. Shakespeare said it. The bondsman in his hands lies the keys to cancel his captivity. Nigerians, when the day they get fed up, they are the ones to rise up and take back their country. Because these guys in power, they are not ready to do anything. They don't even know what to do with the power they have. That's the major problem. And then if you're not a praise singer, you are a target for them. If you criticize the president, his hangers-on would lynch you, literally. So this is, and how can a country develop with such a mindset? Everybody's waiting for an opportunity to steal. That leads me to the local government elections. If you think that the president is terrible, watch what is happening at the grassroots. And then that will just open your eyes that there is a rotten bucket all through.
Okay, sorry. We'll get to that. But I would like you to touch on Tinubu, his stewardship. It appears as if these days all he says is, trust me, give me more time. I'm taking care of things that started before I came in. Things will be better. And things are continuing to be worse for people. The exchange rates, interest rates, everything is really getting to the point that I don't know how people are surviving. So what is your assessment of what he's doing? Could that be a surprise that 2 years from now, the country will be in a better place as he's promising?
Before the elections, I wrote an article that was published in Premium Times that I pity whoever is going to take over from Buhari as Nigeria's president. Because the indices were already there. The economy was in shambles, that Nigerians are going to suffer. So Tinubu, he contributed, he was a part of the problem because he was a part of the government, APC. They were the guys cheerleading Buhari. They were the guys that told us that Buhari was working. They were the guys that told us to trust Buhari, and now he's repeating the same mantra again. Trust him with what? I stated here in your program, give Tinubu 100 years, he will not know what to do with Nigeria. He doesn't have the capacity or the competence to govern Nigeria. Anybody challenge me on the indices. It's nothing personal. Tinubu cannot revive Nigeria. Tinubu doesn't have what it takes. He doesn't even know what to do with the country. He's very busy battling his own challenges, personal and health challenges. He has no idea where to start with Nigeria. So anybody who is waiting and trusting him, okay, tell me, his first 100 days in office, which policy has he introduced to stem the inflation in the country, or to hold back on the downward slide of the Naira? You came to power. The first thing you did without any plans, I'm going to remove subsidy because your IMF cheerleaders and those guys you met at Chatham House told you that you must do that as a reason, as a ground for you to come to power. And you did it without even knowing that the words of a president could cause the stock market to rise and crash. And what happened? Okay, the forces that are hell-bent on making a buck out of every bad situation in Nigeria took over. And then he's overwhelmed. Tinubu is overwhelmed. Buhari was very busy sleeping, and his aides and lieutenants were very busy, portioning Nigeria to their private estates. Tinubu doesn't have what it takes. I will repeat this. Even he sits before me, I will tell him, you don't have what it takes to govern Nigeria. So those that...
Hold on. He's going to reshuffle his cabinet. Okay. Some people are saying that it's an acknowledgement that the people he has there right now, that they don't have what it takes. So he's trying to find new people that will move the country forward, the way they say it in Nigeria. You don't think that he could find the right people?
It's not even about finding the right people, but finding what are his agenda. The president has to set the tone, and then you find people to do your bidding. So if you don't have, look at it there. Nigeria has been hijacked. Okay, what is the opposition doing? Anytime I hear anybody criticize Tinubu, they take it personal. It's a personal thing. Okay. And then it becomes a tribal affair. If Peter Obi does anything, they will send Reno, his attack dog. So I don't even get it. I don't get it. Tinubu doesn't have what it takes. At my view, as Senate president, it's not, the Senate is not even a check on the executive. Is it the courts? No, you can consult Professor Chidi Odinkalo to tell you what the rot in the judiciary is all about. We all are witnesses to that. So Nigeria has been captured at every tier of governance. Nigeria has been captured by people who don't even know what to do with power. They are just there, making sure that money keeps on lubricating their hands. And then after 8 years, they will leave Nigeria. It's going to be worse. Nigerians should brace up. What you are seeing is just what we call in the Nigerian parlance, testing the microphone. This what you're saying is just testing the microphone. His ministers should be at the forefront, explaining his policies to Nigerians. How many of them do you hear? Electricity tariff, they created tier A and tier B, and it's gone to the roof for darkness. People don't even have electric power. During the elections, Peter Obi was talking about the issues. I went to Egypt to see how they did power. Has Tinubu ever talked about what he's going to do in the power sector? Is power not the linchpin of every economy? If you want to produce, there must be power. What has this government told us it's going to do in the power sector? Nothing. Agriculture. Buhari told us he was producing rice massively. So every problem now, they throw rice at it. Nigerians are hungry, give them rice. There is a flood, give them rice. So this is a rice government. Every problem, just rice is the solution. In the 21st century, and our kids are going to be competing with Chinese kids for a place in the sun. And then you think we are going to be saved anytime soon. I'm afraid Nigerians have not even realized where they are. We are in serious trouble.
If they call on you to come and be part of the cabinet, will you go?
They wouldn't even call on me because but they will kill me in 2 days because I won't keep quiet.
All right. Let's touch on a few things going on in Nigeria as we speak. Let me start with the issue of Bobrisky and Very Dark Man. I know, but we have to discuss it because it may look as simple, but it's a wider issue. So, the outline of what happened.
Yeah, I've been listening to the airwaves. Yeah.
Okay. So a leaked audio from someone who they believe is Bobrisky said, "I was not locked up in prison. I was kept in an apartment," and that led to several things. So when you look at the argument on that, what is your take on what people are missing?
Well, anyway, Chinua Achebe said in 1983 that, anyway, let me start with P.J. O'Rourke, a foreigner. P.J. O'Rourke said that you cannot even come to Nigeria to get scammed without paying a bribe. Okay? And Chinua Achebe said that telling a Nigerian not to be corrupt under the present circumstances is like telling a goat not to eat yams. But I disagree with Achebe. It lies in the ontological blueprint of a goat to eat yams, but it's not in our ontological blueprints to be corrupt. We are human. We created society, okay, to help us. And then we know that with truth and justice, every society works well. So is it today that do Nigerians want me to tell them that many big men that were sentenced to Kirikiri never spent a night in jail? They want it to come out of my mouth. These big men will tell you themselves that they never spent a night in jail. That Bobrisky or whoever, alleged Bobrisky and the alleged, said it is nothing new. Anybody who has kept his eyes to the ground in Nigeria knows that with money, you could buy anything. Hey, come on. In the judiciary, a judicial officer rose up in his farewell speech and told us that judges are being bribed to pervert justice. The husband of a judicial officer stood up in the Senate on his farewell address and said that he thanked God that his wife listened to him and made sure that his friend won. Nigeria. So is it one? Open the pages of any Nigerian newspaper any day and see the news of corruption will suffuse you with. So it is nothing new. So Achebe, giving Achebe credence. It seems you cannot tell a Nigerian to be telling a Nigerian not to be corrupt is just like telling a goat not to eat yams. So whatever is in the alleged tape is nothing new to me. Okay, the guy that took it upon himself to release it showed for me. Okay. The side I see with him is that it shows that he's not even a trained journalist. He doesn't even know what the ethics of journalism is all about. He's just throwing things out there. Okay. An innocent young man. A lot of people will praise his bravado, but bravado will get you killed. In this line of business, words are powerful, and it's very easy to defame people, or cause yourself to become a subject of a libel suit. There are ways of presenting such things without putting yourself in a kind of making yourself the message. If you make yourself the message, people will leave the message and then make you their target. So this is the only thing. But the Bobrisky case, first of all, I disagree with the basis of prosecuting Bobrisky. They called it Naira mutilation. This has been a part of our culture for ages. People have always sprayed money to artists in appreciation of their art. We see that in dances, in low-in tradition. So this has been a way, this has been sustaining local economies. A lot of people go out on Saturday, play songs, play music, and then they have always depended on that. And the EFCC called it mutilation of Naira. We should make our Naira stronger. We should make our money. So, and Nigerians are smart. Many of them go to occasions today and then they change Naira to dollar and then they are spraying. So would EFCC arrest them for spraying currencies? No, dollar is not your currency, so you don't have any jurisdiction over it. So the basis of convicting the guy, they call it Nigerian law, but there are a lot of laws in our books that really need to be reviewed. The big fishes that have embezzled funds in Nigeria, many of them are still walking the street. Yaya Bello is still challenging the EFCC to a tug of war. Has he been arrested? But, because Bobrisky is a cross-dresser, and then anybody, but Nigerians love such things. Let's do him in. But the basis of arresting that guy for me is one of the silly laws that we have in our books. And that shouldn't be the purview of the EFCC. So that today people are accusing, he said in the leaked tape that he didn't spend a night in jail. It's nothing new. There are some politicians that have been in prison in Nigeria that never spent a night in jail. They were given quarters where they were treated like kings. The power of we spoke.
Yeah, I want you to talk about defamation of character, because there are a lot of our people watching who are in the same business of disseminating information in this new age. What does it mean? How will somebody be guilty of that? Because most people do not know.
Well, now here, I think before I say that, I should charge some fee for anybody who wants to know that from me. So if they want him, they should come, and then if not, they should read the relevant sections of the Nigerian Criminal Code. Okay, it's out there. It's out there, and they should learn the ethics of journalism. A journalist it's not anybody who has a camera, a video camera. There are legal implications to words that you say, that you disseminate to the public. There are broadcasting laws. There are laws of journalism. There are relevant laws and statutes in every country, in every jurisdiction where you practice. So you don't just open your mouth and say anything. Some people will say there are in some jurisdictions where truth is a defense for defamation. And there are some jurisdictions where they are not. So it depends on the jurisdiction where the relevant laws that apply there. So Nigerians should be very, very careful. Don't make yourself the message. And this is why, before journalists publish anything, they keep on cross-checking. They get collaborations. They put words in the mouths of, they let their contacts. They ask me for comments. I got this about you. What is your comment on that? And they report it that way. You're reporting the news. You don't make yourself the news. They report it that way. I got this information and I asked him for his, and he said no comment. People say that you got this information, then you reported it, and then you asked for his comment on that. We are going to press. Can we get your comment on that? I've gotten that a lot of times. People call me, hey, we got this about genocide somewhere. What is your comment? If I have to come, I say something. If I don't, I say no comment. But the major problem is that a lot of our young people feel that I can say it, nobody can. No, people can really do things to you. You can really lose your freedom for some years. if you defame somebody without any valid reason. Defamation, it means there's no reason. So for it, so you should cross-check your facts and then what you're delivering. That's what trained journalists do. That's why journalism is not for everybody. People go to school to study these things. Not everybody can sit down and then start moderating, or anybody can sit down and then start writing and then throwing out things. If you want to write your opinion, there are places for that in the newspaper. It's called op-ed. You can state your opinion there, but you don't even there. You're not allowed to defame anybody. Everybody's entitled to his good name, reputation, and character. So if you defame that, the person could seek redress in the court of law. And if you are convicted of that, then the law takes its course, and the law could be sometimes really hard.
Now, connecting that to what happened to the Amaka in Canada, I forgot her last name.
The sun beggar or whatever.
Yes, yeah. So when people come out on a platform like this to speak, what is at stake for them in terms of things they say?
Words have meanings. Whatever, every individual, okay, the point is, laws are made to facilitate our, lives together in society. So every society creates its own laws. The woman in Canada that said that she will want to, they reported that she said she will poison every Yoruba and Bini person that she sees. If I am right, I didn't. Yeah, it's a reckless statement. There are some jurisdictions where that is protected under free speech. There are some jurisdictions not. But that you have the right to freedom of expression doesn't mean that you should shout fire in a crowded theater. This is the simplest example of that. Somebody who said he's going to poison, a group of people because of where they come from, the tribe or the race they come from, is a racist. And then if he acts on it, then he has a motive, and then he goes on to act on it mens rea and then actus reus, and then that's where the crime comes in. People should watch what they say. You have a mouth doesn't mean that you should mouth out and say anything you want, because those words have consequences, like every action. So the young lady, if she said what was reported, for me, I find it distasteful, and I condemn it to the highest extent possible. Okay, but I heard also that she's now trying to sue Abike Dabiri for $500,000 for whatever. I have not read the suit, so I don't know the particulars of the case. But whatever it is, okay, Nigerians will now see. This is what we see when we try to demonize each other. We saw it during the last election. Bayo Onanuga was using genocidal statements. I said it here once. Even MCO Luomo was telling Igbos not to come out, that if they come out, that they are going to Chokori and the rest of them. There was an Oba in Lagos, Akil, who told the Igbos that they can go to and jump into the lagoon if they don't want, So when people make such reckless statements in a society that is as volatile as ours, so people could take it, it's just, anybody could take it from there and then, start saying anything. And people forget that genocidal statements are equally, you are liable for them. They are criminal. The Arusha Tribunal say that people that work for radio colonists, some of them were convicted for the genocide in Rwanda because of what they said on radio. So people forget this because a lot of people don't know. The Arusha Tribunal convicted radio colonists and some people working there for complicity in genocide. So if your words lead to the killing of a large number, you will not say, I was just saying it, I didn't mean it. You cannot plead that as an excuse. And if you go out to defame somebody, I heard that Femi Falana has threatened the young man, if you don't apologize and withdraw, that I'm going to take it up and clear my name. Yeah, that's the right way to do it. He should take it up and clear his name. Nobody's empowered to defame anybody. Journalism doesn't empower you to do that. Even your fight for justice doesn't empower you to defame other people. You cannot commit injustice while trying to do justice. No, it's not that. It doesn't work that way.
All right, we are going to take a little break. When we come back, we talk about Professor Ahmed Baka, who gave a lecture in about the Igbo factor in the history of intergroup relations and commerce in Kano. We're also going to talk about the election in Edo and the local government elections that are going on. And then we are going to let people in to have a conversation with you. A lot of people are interested in that. So when we come back, we take a 3 minutes break or so. All right. Thank you so much. We are having a conversation with Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh, who has been enriching us on the state of the nation and the world. I hope you are enjoying that conversation. So let's go to what happened in Edo State, election for governor. A lot of people read it different ways. Some people were saying, well, that shows that even the president, that shows that people are happy with what we're doing for them to vote for our party, APC. And you saw the chairman of the APC saying, we're going to use these templates to go to Ondo, I think, and Anambra in the next sets of elections. But some people are saying that, it's all politics is local, that it was a local issue for people in Edo State, and they decided that this is the best way they wanted to go. What is your take?
Was there an election in Edo State?
Okay. I forgot that part.
I have just summarized it. Now listen, we are, I have come to realize that we are a very unserious people. Since what went for an election at the national level took place, any serious-minded person, any serious-minded analyst knows that the ruling power will always try to get as many states as possible on their side of the ledger. That doesn't mean that elections took place. INEC spent 300 billion naira planning an election, okay, buying all the necessary equipment to that effect, telling us that the results will be delivered in real time. Every other result was delivered in real time, but it came to the presidential election, and we started hearing stories, and then you think that the same abracadabra will not happen in Edo State, where Adamso Shiomole had serious stakes to defend. And then Shomole moves from party to party now in the APC, and then they are in a battle of their lives to install their man Friday on the tribunes of the governor's office. So my honest assessment is that there was no elections. The election was marred by irregularities, and the same could be said of the local government elections equally in Anambra State, in Enugu State, and all the rest of it. So you could see governors trying to install their henchmen who will just, Chidodin Kalu, the professor of law at Fletcher School of Law, he said something in the past about when we were talking about this when he wrote an article about the local government autonomy. The governors will install their henchmen who will redirect the local government funds back to the governors of the state, and that's exactly what is happening. That's the plan. Okay, so APC thinks that it will keep on going this way. They have the center, and they are trying to capture as many states as possible. Nigerian elections, is a joke. Everybody knows that, and then nobody takes those things seriously anymore. And then are we going to see development anytime soon? Forget it. With this crop of it's only when you get leaders who are there, just for the interest of even if the interest of the people is 1%, that a country can move forward. But these guys, they don't have the interest of the people at all, not even 0.0001%. They all just want power for power's sake. And this is why I suggested that the only solution to this is to make sure that politics is no more lucrative. We should make it part-time. In Switzerland, legislators are part-time. Local government chairman should be part-time. If there is a proceeding, you will come, and then you'll be paid an allowance for that day, and then you go home and find a job to do. When jobless men go into politics becomes a do or die affair. How many of these people in power today have achieved anything without government, in the business world or in any other field, without government patronage? From the federal to the local government level, just few of them, not very many. And then we can see that in the way our society, we got independence in 1960. You asked me about independence in 1960. From 1960 to around 1964, the Eastern region was already one of the fastest growing economies in the world. The Western region, Obafemi Awolowo has already introduced free education. He has already built the Cocoa House in Ibadan. The Western Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation was already in existence. Ahmadu Bello and his cohorts were already making strides in the north. At this, immediately after independence, even though these guys were done in by the British, but they started because they had the interest of the people at heart. Emaya Opara was very busy trying to create and build industries. Peter Obi is talking about production today. This is what Emaya Opara and all the rest of them did in those days. But today, ask any of these leaders, any of these governors, how many industries have they built? Nigeria's successive leaders were not able to complete a Jokuta till today. Nigeria's successive industry. Instead, we are losing even the private companies that came into our economy to do business and then country pay taxes. We are even losing them. Many of them have left the country because of their currency regime and the way that the naira is meaningless today. So at the local government level, many of those guys that got into power are what the Igbos call Otimbu governor. There are various governors. In Edo State, there was no election, as far as I'm concerned. So just a broad daylight robbery. The wishes of the people were not even respected. And they made no pretenses about that. Like they made no pretenses about the wishes of the people during the presidential election. So how do you think they would do that at the local level? So Nigerians, we are expecting too much from, we keep doing the same thing over again. And then we are trying to expect a different result. It's not going to work. It's madness. It's madness. So when people like Shawore come to talk about revolution now, he has a point. He has seen that this water is too deep, that detergents will not even begin to wash them. We need somebody leading a flood into that Aegean stable. But it's not going to happen because Nigeria is the darling of exploiters of all lands and climes. Nigeria has sweet crude. Nigeria is a swindler's paradise. Anybody who is in power is just presiding over a distribution agency. Tell me what our Federal Executive Council does. They just go to approve contracts. That's what they do. And the same across the states. Just go to approve contracts. The contracts to who? To their rent. In Germany, who builds roads? Who approves contracts for roads? Is the Ministry of Works. The Chancellor doesn't even know anything about it. Is the Minister of Transportation. He's in charge of it. Is poor view. And the autobahns are running. The rail lines are running. The airports are functional. The sea lanes and the river lanes are working. This is not the poor view of the Chancellor. He has capable hands. The parties bring capable hands. And for example, the FDPs in Germany said, we are taking the finance ministry if we win. And they took it. And then if anything happens, the people hold them responsible and they lose the next election. In Nigeria, our president is the president and the minister of petroleum. Where does such a nonsense happen? And he doesn't even give an account. He gives an account to himself of what happened in the petroleum industry. He started with Obasanjo. So, we are playing too much. There was no election in Edo State, and the local government elections were just charades across board, just like the presidential election was. We thought that INEC could do something for once that was rational and reasonable, but our hopes were dashed and disappointed. And Yakubu is still INEC chairman. If you conducted such a flimsy election and you're still in office, a European will just resign. Okay, but he wouldn't. Nigerians resign. They would die there. Okay.
All right. I know our people are interested in coming. We still have two more topics I want you to address. If you can do that just quickly. One is there's a new controversy just started yesterday or 2 days ago. Idris Alba playing. I mean, we have to talk about it. That's what I was told. Idris Alba playing Okonkwo in Tinsel Apart. It appears as a lot of people are angry about that. What is your take on that?
Well, I have to tell you, I changed my views. I followed the discussion. I contributed to it. But some people convinced me otherwise, and I followed the idea. Things Fall Apart. It's one of the greatest masterpieces ever written. my foreign audience, anybody who has not read Things Fall Apart, is poor. Pick up that document. And if you understand the background from where Achebe was writing, and you will understand the genius of a Chinua Achebe. Achebe was battling a circumstance where Africans were subjects of literature. And every narrative about Africa was a savage people. Those who savaged us are calling us savages. Achebe rose up to tell his own story. Africans were not savages. We had a society before you guys came. We had a society that you guys came and devastated. Look at that society. Okonkwo was well known in the 7 villages of Umuofia. He started. And then he went on to lay down the intricacies of an African society with its egalitarian democracy, with its rights, respect for human beings, respect for enemies, because he came here and was killed, because he was a child that was abducted, that was given as a gift. A crime was committed against Umuofia, and he came as a gift too, as a reparation for that. So Achebe told the world that we're not savages. This is who we are. After reading Achebe, I wept, and then I became so very proud that I'm a black man, that I came from his roots. So if you have not read that document, you are poor. I'm sorry, I wouldn't excuse you for anything. That was one of the greatest acts in literature. So in 1986, there was a television adaptation of Things Fall Apart. And the lead actor was Pete Edochie. That was where he cut his teeth. And Edochie delivered a master class, a master act. So my argument was that adaptation should be remastered. NTA shot that then with all the equipment. It should be remastered and shown to a Western audience. People like Chief Isaac Ndokeya played a part. Nelly Uchendo, Esther Umadi. These were great actors that played roles in that. And Siri, who was playing in the village headmaster. All of them played in that movie, in that adaptation. It was wonderful. So when I heard about the move by Oyolowo and Idris Alba to introduce to make a new movie out of Things Fall Apart, I was saying that my misgivings was whether Idris Alba, who is not Igbo, would be able to come into the Igbo world to understand what it means to be an Igbo man, to be able to interpret that role. The mistake I made was I forgot that that's what actors are meant to do. Okay, so I argued against it in a forum, but I have changed my mind since then. I would toe the path of Julius Malema of South Africa. South Africans were killing Nigerians and asking Nigerians to leave South Africa. And Julius Malema stood up and told them, even though some politicians in South Africa were sponsored, he told them, these guys are our brothers. You will receive a white man to come and stay here, but you are kicking your Nigerian brothers away. That I will not do that. Idris Elba is a brother. If he can play Okonkwo and interpret it well, I have no problems with it. The more, the merrier. The world should hear the Igbo story. The world should hear Things Fall Apart in different languages. And that's why I am all for it.
All right, good. One last thing before our audience, they'll kick me out from here because I'm wasting too much time. So there's this Professor Ahmed Baka from Kano, University of Kano, I believe. He gave a lecture called The Igbo Factor in the History of Intergroup Relations and Commerce in Kano, Opportunities and Challenges Revisited. I know you've read the essay. A lot of people read it. What is your take on that essay?
Well, to be a professor is not a day's job, so I will give him his due respect. But after reading that document, I was taken aback, actually. The quality of the work, and anyway, I don't want to go into that. I will leave that to others to criticize the quality of that work, because the quality of that work is not fit. It's not what an academic should churn out in such a forum and call it an inaugural lecture. It's just a rehashing of tired tropes about the and debunked tropes about the Igbo. one of the significant takeaways from that presentation was where he said that Igbos sent their children in the 1930s abroad so that they will come back to dominate Nigeria. I wonder where he got when Igbos came together in a coven, like the weird sisters in Shakespeare's Macbeth, to decide when the Holy Bolly is done, who will come back and dominate Nigeria. The history he was reading is quite different from the history that as it was, because the Yorubas embraced Western education before the Igbos. So the Igbos, we equal. These are the same people that say that the Igbos are rugged individualists. But for him now, they stopped being rugged individualists, and then they came together to say that we send our children abroad, and once they come back, they are going to dominate Nigeria. The Igbos never had a plan of dominating. It was the very same thing that was said when after the Nzogbu coup, which was called an Igbo coup. Okay, although many other Nigerian non-combatants were parts of that coup, they called it Igbo coup because just to cast the Igbo as in what they called in the position of a treasonable felon and the wrecker of the Nigerian society. And the reasons are obvious. Okay, the reasons are obvious. So the Igbos never came together to plan to dominate Nigeria. The Igbos are what Ami Chua in her book called one of the market dominant minorities. And it happened. So they come into commerce and they do well. Not only the Igbos, we have the Bamileke in Cameroon. We have the Jews. We have the Chinese. These are market dominant minorities in certain societies. Everybody should pick up that book, The World on Fire by Professor Ami Chua. Ami Chua is a Chinese woman. And she equally wrote another one called about tiger moms, about tiger Chinese moms. It was a very brilliant document. So she articulated, and she mentioned the Igbo in her book and the Bamileke in Cameroon. These are market dominant minorities. It's not that they come in to dominate. It's that they have an ethos. Once an Igbo comes to a place and says he calls his brother and trains him in the art. And then, so everything he said in that was just to prop up that idea that the Igbos are just there to dominate the houses. No, the Igbos were never. The Igbos have been a migrant race of men, and they are not in the business of dominating anybody or dominating anybody in Nigeria. We have seen that. They want to be treated like every other citizen of this country. The Igbos have contributed more in building up Nigeria than anybody could. Let's challenge the fact. They have paid more in hard coinage to become a part of this nation. They were part of the independence movement. The 1929 about women riots was a challenge to the British in Igbo heartland. The 1949 coal miners' revolt was in Iva Valley in Enugu, where the coal miners shot and killed Igbo miners that were protesting. So the Igbos were at the vanguard of fighting for independence for this country. Okay, we don't talk about the Mbono G case, the Nnamdi Azikiwe and all the rest of them. Not alone. The Igbos today, I am Igbo, the Igbos that I represent, we want to live in a country that accepts us with our human rights, our fundamental freedoms are respected like every other person. We just want a common playing field. Okay? A common playing field for everybody. Equality of opportunities. Let everybody, So that's all the Igbos want. They don't want to dominate anybody. So that's where Professor Bako lost me and lost many other people. Apart from the fact that as an academic, I quarreled with his methodology and his presentation. Other than that, this is where he lost me. That was one of the major points.
All right, thank you. Let's bring in people. Please, when we bring you in, just ask your question. You have less than 2 minutes, more long speeches, so that we can get to many people. If you are inside the studio, please turn on your camera so that we can bring you in. If your camera is off, I will not bring you in. And if we run out of room, we have to take you out. So let me start with you, Righteous Man. You are the first. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, good evening, Dr. Damages. Good evening, our guests. This is the second time I have the opportunity of listening to you. I'm speaking from Lagos, Nigeria. This is where I live. I appreciate your excellent exposition on the subjects that you have treated and answered this evening. Now, my question is this. Having alluded to the fact that Donald Trump seems to have a personal green light to solving the issue of Ukraine and Russia, and also not, do you think that he will go against, let me just make it brief, do you think he will go against the state policy of the United States? That's my question.
All right, you are muted, Dr.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the compliments, righteous man. I do appreciate it. Presidents make policies, actually. That's why when they are elected, they are expected to make policies, although there are standing treaties and obligations that every president respects. But, you know, like every empire, every imperial project has bureaucracies of state. The American State Department, the neocons in Washington, they're the ones that actually drive American foreign policy. That's the reason why, no matter who you elect, Democrat or Republican, American foreign policy remains the same. So Donald Trump pledged to do a lot of things. He wanted to contain what he called the deep state in his first incarnation as president. He didn't succeed. You know, because this is a bureaucracy that is well entrenched in the government. They have been there. They have seen presidents come and go. Okay. So, you know, some authors will tell you that it was a deep state that killed Kennedy. Okay. So it's difficult, but not impossible. There are ways of doing that. And there are ways, if Donald Trump, and that's why a lot of people are fighting to make sure that I don't like Trump as a man. I have to, this is a open disclosure. I don't like his politics. But on the issue of Russia and the Ukraine, I find his policy that he's the only one that says he's going to talk to the Russians and then that he's going to stop the war. I find that more rational than what the Democrats are throwing around. So I don't believe, because I'm liberal, that I will. No, I follow the truth wherever it leads. If Donald Trump is the one saying it, he's the one saying it. So I find talking to the Russians a very credible option, and that's what the world needs at this time. Okay, the Russians have serious security interest in NATO not being, in Ukraine not joining NATO. Before this war started, one of the greatest warmongers of the 20th century, Henry Kissinger, wrote an op-ed in Foreign Policy. I will urge anybody to go and read this article that he wrote there. He said, Ukraine should make do with the fact that they will lose Crimea. Okay, but they should talk to Russia, and the United States should engage in a dialogue with Russia. Biden didn't do that. Kissinger has been a veteran of so many American wars, from Cambodia, from Laos. In fact, a lot of people regard him as a war criminal that should be in the Hague. But his insights were valuable there. I really enjoyed that article, and I believe that was what America should have done. Russia is not a threat to the United States. But right now, America has pushed Russia to the wall, that Russia has become more powerful. Anybody that has followed the course of this war will know that even the whole Western industrial capacity, they didn't have weapons anymore to deliver to the Ukrainians. And the Russians were outproducing them 5-1 on all scales. So which is to say, Russia has boiled down for war. So, but we are not told all these things. If you are talking to the diplomats here in Europe, they will tell you that. But they will be afraid to speak openly, because if they speak openly, their careers are done. Even in the United States, I have a few friends that will tell me, hey, in the Ukraine is gone. Russia has already won this war. These are people in the know. They confess that to you, but they will tell you, if I say this loud, I am gone. So the people are now talking about, peace and all whatnot. Russia is presenting a peace plan, or presenting a plan for the West to allow him to use long-range storm shadow of the British or American attack arms to attack targets deep in Russia. Russia said, now look, we will call up our nuclear doctrine. If any of those missiles land in Russia, we will go nuclear. And the United States understood that. And that's why there are back channels of communication right now that is trying to stem that down. So if Trump is going to do it, that would be wonderful. I don't know whether he will succeed. I can only speculate at this time. He is not even president yet. I don't know if we will make it to the White House. So everything we are going to say in this regard will be pure speculation.
All right. Thank you, righteous man. Jagun, you're next.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I too would like to hail our guest. I believe you are a professor, as this is the second time that I've seen you on the show. But if I have a stab at pronouncing your name correctly, Ogbunwezeh, is that correct, sir? What you have done today for me has been somewhat touching, most especially the way you spoke about Chinua Achebe's great book, In Things Fall Apart. I don't believe it's touched me in that way before. Anyone speaking about that great book. And I've listened to many pundits who speak about it in the book, and it's not touched me like that. Excuse me. This show that we do is a complex one. And I hail Rudolph for the show that we have here. In the last 3 or 4 days of the show being put out there, I've seen magnificent growth in my observations in terms of what people are now speaking about, and the behaviors clear up. The bad behaviors clear up when people are speaking on matters. My question is this, sir. In my agreement with your thorough and candid analysis that you put out there, we have recently been speaking on critical thinking and what the picture looks like, what Nigeria is supposed to look like, given all the things, the requisite powers that we have to make Nigeria a great country. And I've been applauding that kind of speech particularly. I would like to get from you your tangible, objective viewpoint on Nigeria rising from the dismay, the bungle, the harsh, inhumane ways in which we treat each other, to the heights of a nation that stands. I would want you to apply your critical thinking to that, and how professorship, education with people within the Nigerian space should be thinking in order to make this happen. That is my submission and question, sir. I applaud your authority of intellect. Thank you.
Well, thank you, my brother. I wouldn't say, but you just dressed me in borrowed robes, if I'm to borrow from Shakespeare. But thank you. I really appreciate the compliments. What I said about Achebe came straight from my heart, because that's the way I feel about him. Anybody that reads the circumstance from which Achebe rose to write Things Fall Apart, from which most of our early writers rose to write what they did, then one understands the great service these guys did us today. Okay, Achebe remains an authority. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, even Shoyinka, remains an authority for all of us, all those guys, and even the poets, J.P. Clark and all the rest of Dennis Brotos in South Africa, all those great minds. They were the ones that formed ours and gave us a place to stand and speak. So, you know, anybody that knows me knows that I'm a very anti-imperialist, and I'm a Pan-Africanist because of these guys, because of what they showed me. When you talk about how can we get Nigeria, I have written a lot. Anybody that has been following me on Facebook will have seen that my Facebook page is a place of intellectual debates, hard ones, and I always play the devil's advocate. For example, today I asked, 2 days ago, I asked a question. Do you think that the white man would have given you the Bible if there was power in Jesus' name? I said, it's just a simple question. I wanted to hear the views of the people. Because I was led to this by Nigerian pastors, always saying, in Jesus' name, dollar fall, 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 fall. Dollar must fall in Jesus' name. I got a video of a Nigerian pastor saying, I am, he called his name, and then dollar, I command you. I said, does this guy know the basic principles of economics at all? So, and I said, because of Jesus' name, Israel today is conducting a war in the Middle East. They're not using Jesus, so he's supposed to be their brother. They have not called Jesus to come and help. They are using military hardware, fruits of human intelligence. Okay, so, and then the question was, why were the American slaves allowed the Bible, but they were not even taught how to liberate themselves? They were killed, lynched. If any of them ventured to talk about liberation, Nathaniel Turner, we know him, and so many other people. Our people didn't march into slavery willingly. They resisted. They resisted till the point of expiration. They were murdered. And that's why I always tell people, the only thing that the West did better than we did is violence. They applied violence. Even the religion we practice, for you to devastate a culture, it's a nuclear grade kind of violence. It would They didn't come preaching Holy Mary or Holy Jesus, and then we said, oh, we are theologians are noble. No. Go read Bertrand Russell, Why I'm Not a Christian, and see what the Spaniards did to the Incas in South America. They would baptize the kids and smash their heads against the rocks. And if they tell you what they did across Africa, you will not even believe it. Don't think only about Christians. Muslims were worse. Trans-Saharan slave trade was one of the worst that ever happened in human history. So that's what it is. So if there was power in Jesus' name, if Jesus could liberate slaves, St. Paul would not be telling telling Philemon to send his slave, and then slaves, respect your masters. That's why I don't take many of those literatures seriously, because if any book could tell me that slavery is good, or that I should respect, as I should be a slave and respect my master, I would throw that book in the trash can, because slavery is evil. If it takes humanists to remind religious people that slavery is evil, why should I be a religionist? These are the questions I was asking people. But anyway, let me not go far there. The issue is, how do we get Nigeria to work? I wrote an article titled, It's Philosophy, Stupid. It's on my Facebook page. It's simply philosophy. Okay? I said here, there are 3 R's that brought Europe to where it is. It is Italian Renaissance. When people started stopping to believe that the heavens, that the church should teach people how to go to, how the heavens go. The church should mind teaching people how to go to heaven, but not how the heavens work, how astronomy works. That was Galileo's point, and he was imprisoned. So the Renaissance that started there, people started believing in, let us observe, let us experiment, and let us come to conclusion. It's created a new epistemic architecture that led us to where we are today. Sciences. Many of the things our forefathers did in Africa were scientific, but many of them hid it and then put an aura of taboo and magic around it, like pharmacological properties of leaves in the bushes. Okay? Many of them knew that. My mom used to go, newborn babies that have something, a hole in the head. She used to go, her mother taught her that. She used to go and get some leaves that I don't even know their name. She would just use them and place on the head of these babies. And in a few months' time, they will be healthy. A lot of other people did it. So pharmacology, as we know today, started with women who planted plants and knew the efficacy of these plants. Europe killed them in the witch hunts in the Middle Ages. So it's philosophy. How do we reason? How do we affirm ourselves? We are still answering white names. When should we start answering our names and then start being authentic about ourselves? Forgetting the legacies of colonialism and start knowing that only the bondsman, Shakespeare said it, only the slave has in his hands the keys to cancel his captivity. If we believe but we are the ones to do it, nobody's coming to save us. If you think anybody's coming, nobody. We are on our own. Only Nigerians can save Nigeria. So we should revamp our philosophy. You talked about critical thinking. Do you know that critical thinking started suffering in Nigeria from the late 80s till today? And that's why we have so many churches in Nigeria. Go to Lagos. In one street, you will see about 20, 50 churches. People go to church to pray for problems that they can solve for themselves. And you know when that started? When IMF told Nigeria under Shagari to introduce austerity measure and defund education. You know, people don't know where, when Achebe said, if you don't know where the rain started to beat you, you will never know where it stops. So why would a foreign institution tell our government, defund education, defund social services? They don't want it to be great. I said once on this program, if I am the president, I will abolish security votes for governors, and I will plunge that in education. Education will take the largest chunk of my budget every year. We need to reestablish. Education is not only sitting down to learn grammar. China did what Germans did. They call it dual system. Those who cannot learn grammar or high sciences should go and learn how to use their hands. We need both to build our society. Education. And again, what does it take to cause a revolution in a society? Only 3% of the population. 3%. And the educated Nigerians are more than 3%. If you get the 3% of any population, you could change that structure. 3%. There are a lot of studies that have proven that. 3%. If you, out of 10 people, out of 100, if you get 3 people that are noise makers, they will bring down the whole house. One will be doing, So, and what are we doing? Educated people from Nigeria, we have abandoned our home. So a bunch of charlatans. Chinua Achebe called them a clique of renegades. They don't care. Gowon and Buhari are now in London, in their residences in London. Does Obama have any residence anywhere in any other country in this world? He will lose relevance immediately. But we clap for these people. Does Angela Merkel have any residence anywhere outside Germany? No, but we run back to our colonial masters after serving interests that are detrimental to our people. 3% of Nigerians, that's all we need. Can we start together? Can Rudolph lead that revolution from this platform? Okay, I'll not only talk shopping. After the Second World War, the United States saw what the Germans did. When I tell people American greatness is built on stolen German technology, they don't believe it. Go and read the memoirs of Albert Speer. Albert Speer was Hitler's munitions minister. He wrote a book. He wasn't killed in Nuremberg. He wrote a book detailing the weapon system that German scientists were producing. The United States never knew anything about it. And after the war, you see these weapon systems being possessed by the US and Russia. You read another book by Annie Jacobson called Operation Paperclip. So what America did was to bring Hitler's scientists, shield them from the tribunals, bring them to the United States, give them everything they needed, and ask them, do your research, but for us this time. Nigeria fought the war. During the Civil War, there were so many advances that were made. The Biafran scientists, research and production, they were refining oil in the bushes of Biafra under heavy bombardment. But today, Nigeria has 4 refineries and none of them is working. We don't refine the crude we produce. So you ask yourself, how were these guys, Godian Ezekwe and co., how were they refining oil? Engineer Roy Umeini and co., how were they refining oil in the bushes of Biafra? And after the war, the British advised our government, no victor, no vanquished. All of that should be, disbanded. It created a project development institute in Enugu called PRODA, but it was so much starved of funds that I don't even know whether it exists anymore. We should create research centers. Germany is littered with research centers. We have Fresenius Institute. We have the Fraunhofer Institute. What are they doing? If you see, they are researching in everything under the sun, from philosophy to anthropology. We have Max Planck Institute. The MP drive, that is the basis of Apple, transmuting sound into telephone for music, was created here in Germany. MP drive means Max Planck 3. So this is what a country that wants to progress does. Create research centers. Spend money on that, not on building 21 billion naira mansion for Shetima. Was he living in a bush before? On buying a new private jet? The German chancellor doesn't have a private jet. The German government has a jet, one. Nigeria has many. How many did Buhari inherit? He said he was going to sell them. How many did he? And how much money? Go and check Nigeria's educational budget. That tells you where our priorities lie. Ronald Reagan said something in the 80s. He said that American greatness was built in the classrooms. The greatness of any nation will be built in her classrooms. Check where Nigerian students go to lectures. Check where Nigerian primary school students study, under mango trees. And if a senator renovates a school building, he has done noble, and we sing his praises to high heavens. Education in Germany takes a large chunk of the budget. Education is free till the university level. You just pay stipend. If I am president today, that will be my goal, to make sure that in 2 years, education from the nursery to the university level should be free for every Nigerian who can study. And that will create another dual path for those who don't want to go to the universities to go and learn the trades and go and learn how to use their hands. Many engineers that work for Mercedes, they didn't go to universities. They learned with their hands, mechanics. Okay, so I presented 3 ideas. First of all, we have to revamp our education, change our curriculum. Our curriculum is still colonial. We are still speaking grammar, whereas other countries are developing. And then get a platform where we unite Nigerians of like mind. I always tell people, I started a project with Pius Adesami because we used to argue on listservs and we were writing highfalutin papers that nobody reads. And we decided to come down to Facebook to confront Nigerians. If they want yabis, we do it all there. To make people start to think, start using, because if you read what Nigerians write on the social media, sometimes they are some of them are atrocious. And then you see that our people don't read or think. So if you come and challenge them, they will hate you for the moment, but some other time they will hear the same thing somewhere else, and then they will start thinking. So that was our project, getting Nigerians to think. And when we write, we call it writing for archaeology. So that tomorrow, if somebody comes down from anywhere and said, why is it that no Nigerian protested when these guys were stealing our patrimony? That they will see that somebody like me kicked and wrote and said, I am not a part of this. So what I am doing here even is just to get Nigerians to think. I'm not just trying to show what I know. Get us to start thinking. Okay, because it is philosophy. The philosophy of a country determines whether that country is going to develop, whether it's going to have good governance, whether education is going to be free, whether people are going to have food on their table, whether crooks should be ruling us without our consent. So if we still believe in this petty tribal politics, where the thief from Enugu should be the president and the thief from Lagos not, then we are doomed. But if we condemn thievery, that no thief should ever raise his head in our firmament, it will not happen. It starts with a plan. Instead of agonizing, we should start organizing. It's a slogan, but it's a very effective one. That's what we should think about.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jaglon. Let's go to Pansat.
Hello, welcome, Dr. Ogbunwezeh, to the show. It's always good to see you. And of course, thank you, Rudolph, for bringing a genuine intellectual, right? He's been dispensing knowledge here. Before I go to my serious question, I would like to say that Dr. Ogbunwezeh, religion, Christianity in particular, when I say religion, I mean Christianity, it's a very important discipline for a society. But also looking at it historically, as we deal with the Israeli and the Arab nations conflict. You know, in David and Goliath, even though it's, you know, it's the same thing. That is one thing I know the Bible predicted accurately from a long time ago, right? In the case of David and Goliath, and the story goes in the Bible that the Philistine army was seeking to take away Israel's land. I believe that's in 1 Samuel 17. If you read that, it's absolutely accurate. It's not a personal triumph for David. What took place there was God's people whose lands were being taken away by Philistines. Now, when we say Philistines, it sounds like Palestinians, but it's pretty much the same thing. Maybe if you you do their DNA, it might not be exactly the people there today, but it's, you know, when you look at the history. So I believe that those who are always looking for a scientific thing to hug the Bible, that's one. It's rather it's looking at us. It's going on today, and David is defeating Goliath. I disagree with genocide, and obviously that's where I agree with you on the way you put up Trump in this case, and his policies, as far as we knew back 4 years ago, were proper. He doesn't want to disrespect Russia. He doesn't want wars, and the Democrats tend to be doing that. But this time around, I'm not supporting Trump. I supported him the last time. I thought he was the best president any country had produced, but he made a couple of mistakes. So now, I wanted to spend 1 second to say that you're a very brilliant human being. You are well versed. You're virtuoso. You know a lot of things. You could give us the last name of Bobrisky, and also tell us what happened many centuries ago. But I'm just saying, you're well rounded off, and every Nigerian should be proud of you. Many times you've come here. A couple of times I've ruffled it up with you, and like I just did with this religious issue. But now, when you also touched up on what makes our country, any country, to be great, which would be economic growth, social progress, human development, rule of law, you know, genuine progress indicators and things like that. But we know there's not a single one that we're on the right trajectory. So my question to you is this, and to many intellectuals in that country, we're not gonna do this forever. We're not gonna wait for Nigeria to get it right forever, while our people are getting bite. I don't know what that word means, but what I'm saying is that I believe I want you to really give me a thorough answer like you did for Jagun here, who everybody wanted to give him a hug because he was touched by the way you presented Chinua Achebe, and we all touched by his gesture there. But what I'm saying is that there are those of us who believe that we should take our country by force, that we don't have a constitution, that basically you just have a bunch of cabal take over. And lording us over us. They are not obeying the laws. They're not obeying the rules. Out of all those things that I listed a few minutes ago, there's not even one that is on the trajectory where maybe education, maybe this. They're not doing anything like that. So why shouldn't we take our country by force? Why? Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Pansa. Okay.
Am I on?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm a very fearful man. I am not Thomas Hobbes, who had to write his Leviathan because of his fear of violent death. The problem with taking our country by force is that we have tried that. All the military guys took it by force. And what did they do? They achieved nothing. They ended up on the same barriers that the civilians confronted, and then couldn't do anything to solve. I used to believe Achebe, that the trouble with Nigeria is leadership. But it is not leadership alone. Nigeria and many African countries have a lot of myriads of challenges. And I used to believe, until I read Chinwezu, not the West and the rest of us. I read Chinwezu's recent articulations as late as 2000, I guess. And the way he was talking about, that the trouble with many of these countries is not only leadership, that the trouble with them is equality, the fact that they Neocolonialism, that's what he called it. But then I developed a theory which I call the hostage theory. Most African leaders that wanted to achieve something for their countries, do you know what happened to them? Many of them were, all of them were killed. The question is, by who? So when Rudolph talked about the West and the rest of us, by the West. And the question is, why? So many of these leaders came into power without even knowing that they have already come into structures that were already created. If you read the book, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins, he tried to articulate it well. The major problem I discovered is that no African country is independent. We are celebrating 64 years on the 1st of October. When did independence start happening? It was after the Second World War. Many young Africans that were in this country saw that the Germans were actually kicking the asses of the British. And they said, why should we remain under colonial yoke when these guys were kicking your asses? We saw them, what they do to you in Burma. We saw what they did to you every other place. And then what Churchill described them as a wind of change. Okay. And then they came, the wave of independence movement, started agitating for independence. Unfortunately for Africa, as the sun was setting on the British Empire, another empire was rising. And this empire was the United States. And as British were being kicked out, and many other colonial masters were being kicked out of Africa, the United States started recolonizing these countries. I have a beautiful book for all of you. It's called White Malice. Everybody should find that book and read. Sorry, this is what has been wasting my time this time around. White Malice, the CIA and the new colonization of Africa. Not only this, you have to read again Empires Without Colonies, Imperial Colonies, Imperialism Without Colonies. This was how these countries were captured. And that's why there is no coup that happened anywhere in any African country without the CIA planning it. If they don't give you their blessings and you do that, you are dead the next day. The French did their France-Afrique policy, led by Jacques Foccart. And that's why today the French are using euro, but the economic policies of Francophone African countries are still being determined in Paris, CFA francs. Read the treaties of the WTO and see what they do to African exports. And they threw open African markets. So our hands are so much tied. And then these leaders, if you read Fanon, where he talked about the psychology of oppression, and you see Jean-Paul Sartre writing a foreword to him where he said that if suppressed fury fails to find an outlet, it will go in and devastate the oppressed themselves. That's what happened to many of our first independence leaders. They came, they saw the magnitude of the problem. They couldn't get out of this. Lumumba was killed in Congo. For what? Because he wanted to use Congolese resources for the Congolese people. And Noam Chomsky in 2000 or 2000 and something wrote a beautiful book to tell you why the United States will never allow you to use the resources of your people for the best interest of your people. The book is called Fateful Triangle. Pick it up and read, please. I am not the one saying it. Fateful Triangle, America will never allow ethno-nationalism to rise. Ethno-nationalism he defined as the movement by the people to use their resources for the best interest of their country. If you do that, the USA will shut you down because they are the new colonial masters. The war in Congo is a genocide. Over 5 million Congolese are dead today. What is the war about? Coltan. That I'm talking to you using computer technology or telephone technology, even the new electric cars, This is the wafer technology they're using. So it's found in Congo, and they're ready to kill and displace populations for that. WikiLeaks told us that Shell BP, the WikiLeaks leaked cables on Nigeria, stated that Shell BP is the shadow government of Nigeria. Did we not read it? Or Nigerians don't read? Or am I the only one that saw that? And all over resource-rich African countries, this is the hostage theory. Many African countries are hostages, and then they will give you loans, odious loans, and then these loans will, further the corruption. So these leaders, many of them could not do much. They just, why should I kill myself? They will steal and then make sure feather their nests, and then let the new government keep paying for the debts and then allowing them to steal the resources. I will not come and die here for these people. So every country in Africa has had that. So we are under siege. And what is the solution to this? I don't have the answers. Okay? Unless you are aligning yourself with a major power, these guys will not let you develop. Okay? So that's why India, have you ever listened to the Indian foreign minister? Go on YouTube, listen to that guy. He delivered a speech on the United Nations, just concluded a summit. If you see the confidence with which that, if the United States, you don't determine our foreign policy. America told India to stop buying oil from Russia. India said, you're joking. Who are you to tell us how to run our foreign policy? Do you know the reason why? Because India has nuclear weapons. Pakistan the same. So they don't mess, the big country, the big dogs don't mess with big dogs. But we are small dogs, so everybody's messing with us. So the issue is, first of all, we should start thinking about people who have integrity. At least if they are stealing, they will steal small. Okay? And then use the rest within the parameters allowed us by these big dogs to keep on developing, to keep on creating research centers, to keep on doing little things. That when the curtains will be opened, we will rise. But the point is that we are not even doing any of this. Is it roads that we have in Nigeria? We cannot even generate power. Lagos, Nigeria got electricity 14 years after England. 1864. Those who are living in the British Isles, how many times have you suffered power failure? Almost nil. Nigerians, Obasanjo spent 16 billion to generate darkness. $16 billion. We are not even, we have roads, infrastructure. Which one is functional? Tinubu's government awarded East-West Coastal Road, West and South Coastal Road to a company where his son sits with these guys, the Lebanese that laundered money for Abacha. These are the same guys, and that's what we are still doing in Nigeria. And we are thinking that we will rise up anytime soon. The people will take, what I'm saying is that our people are so very hungry at the moment. And the hungry man is an angry man. These politicians don't even know what is happening. They don't even visit their constituencies. Because their solution to Nigeria's problem is rice. If the people make noise, open their strategic reserve, give them rice. Nigerians are going to be tired of rice someday, and they're going to take over their country for themselves. I don't like revolutions. But if you start listening to Shawara, you will see that he has points. These guys are so very damn stupid in their crooked nature that they're not thinking about tomorrow. A European will think about the next 50 years. What am I going to leave? I have a friend. The father was a minister of agriculture in Germany, in one of the places in Germany here. And this man was very busy planting trees and planting forests. The man is dead now, but his daughter takes a walk in most of these forests as the father made sure that we were planted, and they were so very wonderful. And African politicians will come and say, what is in this for me? The chairman, one of the chairmen of APC was caught stuffing dollars in his pockets. And he's a party leader, a respected party elder. Didn't we know about the Kano State governor that was caught on tape, stuffing dollar in his pocket? I don't want to mention any names, because I don't want to become a very dark man that is being charged with defamation. My brother, our problems plenty.
All right. Thank you, Franklyne. Let's move on to Femi. Femi, you're next.
Good morning, Dr. Franklin. So, while we're fighting our own local politics in Nigeria, we see two different but intertwined existential threats. One in the case of what's going in the Middle East, and then the other in the case of the Russia-Ukraine versus the NATO allied forces on the other end. And something came to my mind recently, especially in the aftermath of the killing of Nasra, is it Nasralli or what's his name again?
Nasrallah. Yeah.
Nasrallah, rather.
Hassan
Um,
Nasrallah.
right. So I remember taking a history class once where the issue of the Monroe Doctrine came up,
Okay.
and of course, in the aftermath of it, the one that's not regularly mentioned, the Roosevelt, I think it's called the Roosevelt Corollary, which was more like an update to the Monroe Doctrine. And while I was ruminating over this Nasrallah issue, I was not like, perhaps the likes of the Ilan Papes of this world and Scott Ritter and what's his name, George Napolitano, were right when they confirmed the truth that some of us know about what's really going on and the deception of the West, not just when it comes to trying to control what goes on in the world as we know it, and the rise of the Russians and the lies that continue to be implanted in a lot of people's minds about, again, the reality of what's going on in Ukraine and the Middle East. My question is this: do you think do you see a situation, as I'm thinking out loud in my head, where we're not on the fringes of the Third World War? That we've been that I mean, it looks like we're about to just end it all. What's your opinion about this thought of mine?
Well, my brother, I started with my commentary was I've never been afraid like I am at this moment in history. You know, Albert Einstein was asked, "What do you think the Third World War will look like?" He said, "I don't know about the Third World War, but I know the fourth one will be fighting it with sticks and stones if we survived it." The threats of nuclear annihilation has never been nearer than it is today. Okay, with Israel killing Hassan Nasrallah, this is not the first time Israel has killed their Secretary General of the Hezbollah. They killed Musawi in 1999 using the very same strategy. Okay, but to be honest with you, I have seen the Lebanese or the Hezbollah has shown serious restraint. Don't forget that Hezbollah fought Israel to a standstill over a 20-year period. Israel occupied Lebanon for 20 years. Hezbollah kicked Israel out of Lebanon. Don't forget that. So this is not a force that people forget. Just forget the propaganda. Forget those in the know. Those in the know. I regard Scott Ritter very highly. He's aware. I regard George Napolitano very highly. Jeffrey Sachs, Professor Mearsheimer, even Professor Cohen of blessed memory, Stephen Cohen, who wrote, he's the best Sovietologist that the United States has. He's dead now. Read his books. His wife is the publisher of The Nation magazine. Read those guys. Even the CIA director, William Burns, was an American ambassador to Russia. He was the guy, according to the WikiLeaks leaked cables, who wrote the United States State Department and told them that no Russian leader will accept Ukraine joining NATO. No, not even he was not even talking about Putin. That was the "niet is niet" doctrine. The Russians said "niet." "Niet" is no in Russian. No Russian would accept, no Russian leader would accept that. So the elite governing Russia will never accept. And if you know, in Russia today, there are the hardliners. And it seems in this whole thing that the only adult in the room seems to be Vladimir Putin. Because if Putin had listened to the hardliners in his government, he would have leveled Ukraine with nuclear weapons. He is the only, and there is nothing the West could do. What a lot of people don't understand is that this nuclear issue is not a child's play. The Russians have a doctrine that is called a system that is called the dead hand system. If the United States attacks Russia with nuclear weapons and destroyed everybody, even their leadership, their nuclear technology is programmed in such a way, it's called the dead hand technology, that the souls of Russia will realize that destruction has occurred and will release every Russian nuclear weapon directed at the United States. So even if you kill every Russian, you have set off the nuclear weapons themselves, and they are going to arrive. And these are hypersonic missiles. You're not going to stop them. And what does that mean? Experts will tell you that Russia doesn't even need to fire a single nuclear weapon to destroy the Earth 25,000 times over. All it requires is for the nuclear weapons that Russia possesses to explode in Russia. Our world will cease to exist. So, and this is what leaders who are not sociopaths are just trying to poke the bear. Why do we risk that? Sometimes you believe that those that are governed in many Western countries are sociopathological idiots. Why risk that? Why risk existence? Which kind of an evil mind would you be to risk human existence for your petty politics? Netanyahu is very busy, and his hordes of buccaneers cleansing the Palestinians out of Palestine. The Palestinians have a claim. The Israelis have a claim to Palestine. So if two people are fighting over a property that belongs to both of them, they should talk to each other, not murder each other out of existence. You cannot murder your way to peace. So is it people that calling the settler colonial project? They are correct. That's what it is. So killing Nasrallah, the Middle East is on edge at the moment. Nobody knows what the response of the Lebanese Hezbollah will be. And nobody knows who is coming to their aid. And Iran has struck an alliance with Russia. And don't forget that Russia defeated the United States and the West in Syria. Obama sent the CIA to overthrow Assad. And the Russians, Assad beckoned on Hezbollah and the Russians to come to his aid. And don't forget the West, the United States, funded Al-Qaeda, Al-Nusra Front to kick Assad out. So the United States is funding the terrorists that they were fighting elsewhere just to destroy Assad. And the Russians came. It was because of the Russians, thanks to the Russians, that Assad is still in power today. So the Russians are no joke. Anybody that tells you that Russia is simply a very large gas station doesn't know shit about these people. So I don't want that confrontation. We are on a dangerous precipice at this time. So cool heads should start prevailing in Washington. Okay? This war, every war ends on a table of discussion. Every war. Losers will come to sign surrender documents on a table. So why kill each other before we can talk? Sometimes you cannot phantom it. People you think that are reasonable are not even rational. They're not listening to people who know the implications of all this. They'll believe that the Russians are bluffing. No, they are not. They are not bluffing. Russia has killed up to 600,000 Ukrainian soldiers today. They are not bluffing. It's just a meat grinder out there. The West doesn't even have the weapons anymore. That the United States at the point had to send weapons that it signed a treaty forbidding. Cluster bombs. They sent cluster bombs to Ukraine. Check it out. I'm not just telling you something from the blues. Because they don't have any more. They have exhausted their supplies. And Russia has been out producing them. So we don't want a war between the nuclear powers. We want to live. I don't want to die because of somebody else's stupidity.
All right, thank you. We have a lot of people waiting to ask questions. So please, when I call on you, make it brief so that we can get to them. We have less than about 30 minutes left. Maria, you're next.
Thank you, Dr. Damages. Thank you, Doctor, our guest, for coming to the show. It's always a delight listening to you. Thank you for your in-depth analysis and unbiased disposition to the situation in Nigeria. I dub my heart for you. I think you are one in a million. We were here about a few days ago talking something close to the issues you're dealing with right now. It's a given that the situation in Nigeria is an aberration. It's also, a lot of people agree, a lot of Nigerians gather to agree that it's a huge problem in Nigeria. When you talk about state capture and all that, you know, I understand where you're coming from. Each time we gather, we still gather to, these people are educated. We, one way or the other, most of us have been able to escape from the situation. But we cannot run away from our shadow because we have no other country than Nigeria. People still come here to talk on the basis of APC and PDP support. And it beats me hollow when I see people campaigning for 2027 when they are not seeing the bigger elephant in the room. I mean, no amount of election can be conducted in that environment, given by what happened in 2023, and given the man in charge, the mafia in charge of the political situation. They fail to realize the fact that all the institutions have been infiltrated. Is it INEC, police, military, the court? They have planted their stooges all over the place. And people are here campaigning for 2027. Instead of coming together to think of, like you said, organize, instead of agonizing. What can we do between now and 2027? Instead of, how do we drop this our tribal and other frivolities and focus on the issue at stake, on how to tackle these people? They're not ready to live. And it's also clear to me that the freedom we talk about is not going to come from the ballot, from the polling units and from the ballot buses. My question to you, sir, and I believe we talk about education. Most people that come on this platform, they are very educated. They speak Swiss English. They speak fluently. Sometimes they want to cajole us by their, the English and the other stuff. And those that ring election in Edo State, that came to Edo State, most of them are professors, sir. And you talk about education, and you talk about revolution. And I believe education is good, but not the kind of education we have right now. And the revolution we talk about, not the revolution of the gun. I believe we should start talking of revolution of the mind, because the greatest problem is not even the revolution of the poverty of the pocket or the poverty of the bank account. The revolution of the mind. How do we start talking to our people and bring it together to let them know that the greatest problem we have, or the nearest problem we have, is not the issue of 2027? How do we come together to talk of how to fight as a common front? There was an issue here about 2 days ago. It was Showere or Peter Obi. You could see the problem of Nigeria even on this platform without going to Nigeria. Now, Showere might not have the qualities, competence, capacity, and all that things you ascribe to Obi. That is a given. Then can we now continue to rally around and concentrate on the strong point, the courage? You said something about Showere. That was mean. My respect for you has just tripled. Can we now continue to concentrate on those? He's a human being. He has his own shortcomings. He has his own deficiencies. But one thing you cannot take away from that gentleman is consistency, courage over the years. He had a threat. He was blacklisted recently. He took a flight from New Jersey to Nigeria. Only a few Nigerians can do that. And you also confirm that you are a very fearful person. I cannot, I don't want you to do otherwise, because that is who you are. It shows your sincerity. Instead of castigating this gentleman, he is voting for Buhari. He removed Jonathan for Buhari. He campaigned for this and that. He was against this and that. He said this and that. He was able to go to Nigeria because Buhari is there. Because Tinubu is there. How do we not rally around this guy that has the courage, knowing that the freedom we talked about cannot come through election, given the corrupt institutions we have right now? How do we rally around this gentleman before they kill him again, before they castrate him once again, so that instead of campaigning for 2027, what do we do between 2027 without putting our tribal consideration, on the front burner. Thank you very much.
My brother,
Go ahead.
I wish I had the answers, but unfortunately, I am just thinking aloud. Immanuel Kant, one of the greatest German idealistic philosophers, he said something. He said that the only thing that is unqualifiedly good is a goodwill. Shaware has goodwill. Faults and all whatnot. He has goodwill. He wants to see a Nigeria that works. I see the same in Peter Obi as well. I see the same in the young man, David Udenyi. I see the same in Professor Chedi Odinkalo. I read these people. I don't know them personally. But these are great patriots. But the major problem is that those that define patriotism for us are those who are profiting from the system. And that Chebe warned us about against those people. Okay? It's just like a group of landlords determining how much they will charge for rent, and then we said it's good for us. No, they are after their own interests. So the issue 2027. What I'm saying is a situation Nigerians have not been impoverished the way they are being impoverished now since the Civil War. During the Civil War, it was a section of the country that suffered kwashiorkor and food blockade and all whatever. But Nigerians generally have not suffered the way they are suffering right now. You go to the market with the money you have, and the money is virtually meaningless. The Nigerian government reached an agreement with the labor to pay 70,000 naira as minimum wage. To date, a bag of rice, 50 kg, is 100,000 naira. So even the minimum wage cannot even buy a sack of rice for a family. And then this is what a man should go home with at the end of every month. If you are living in Europe, check out what 70,000 naira is. It's laughable. And then you wonder, many civil servants have their kids abroad, studying in the best universities, all the politicians, almost all of them. And you would think that Nigerians are not seeing this. Do you know what it took for the Arab Spring to start? It was just a single fruit seller whom the authorities have been frustrating. Whenever he packs his barrel of fruits, they will come and then keep on harassing and terrorizing this young man. Until one day he said, enough is enough. He took a match, poured gasoline on himself and set himself ablaze. And that alone burnt down many Arab countries. Nigerian politicians are so very myopic and visionless that they don't even see what is happening around them. Edo State gave me an example. You know how frustrated people are? Where? That they were not allowed to cast their votes. That results were just written. Anambra State the same. Everywhere. And Nigerians think that is going to continue. A time is coming when this petty tribalism is not going to work anymore. Because what our politicians are doing is what the colonial masters did. It's called divide and conquer. They will come and sow divisions between us. And then they have conquered. And then we will be very busy fighting over whose tribe is the best. I'm Yoruba, and Igbo, I'm Hausa, and all whatnot. And then they are very busy. Check out when a Nigerian politician's daughter gets married. All of them from every tribe will troop to the same venue and will be shaking hands and eating the same meal. And the poor people will be there clapping and taking pictures. And, the poor people are seeing all this. Someday it's not going to work anymore. And that's the day they will fear for their heads. That's my fear for Nigeria. So what can we do? I don't have because the state has been captured. So we should start organizing. They are not only trying to harass Shawara, they are harassing David Udenyi everywhere. They are harassing every other person that raises a voice to criticize what is happening there. Because they don't want you to disturb them when they are eating. Okay? And what are they eating? They are feeding on your patrimony, on what belongs to all of us. So what we can do, I don't know. The people who have tried to do something, the obedience rose and tried to present a formidable opposition. And you know what these guys did? They sowed seeds of discord. People like Papa was smuggled into the Labour Party to make sure that the Labour Party doesn't even make any headway. Reno Omokri, who has been with every government that cares to pay his meal ticket. He has been very busy shooting from every side of the mouth, trying to break a very honest revolution of young people who started with saying, let the police stop killing us. That was the NSAS. And Buhari and his goons murdered Nigerians who were singing national anthem with the national flag. And then they went away scot-free with it. And then these people, we said organize. And they organized and said, we are voting for Peter Obi because we saw him as a more credible candidate. And what are they doing? Time is coming. This is going to come to a head someday. And that is the day. These guys are going to leave town someday. Believe me, just mark this. Because Nigerians will not endure this forever. They are taking everything from Nigerians. And if you take anything from a man, you have lost him. He's no longer your slave. He has nothing to lose. He is a weapon. And if this weapon is fashioned against you, I am sorry. No legion of angels will come to your aid. Nigerian politicians are fools. They are not looking at what is happening, but they will say it someday. It will take just a match and it will burn down the whole structure. So I don't know what we can do there. But if I say organize, we have organized. It didn't work. If there's a less protest, we have protest. They killed us. They are waiting for us to carry weapons and shoot them on the street. But you can see what they sold is coming back to them. Many of them are sleeping with their eyes open. Kidnappers everywhere. They don't travel unless they are traveling with a retinue of hangers-on. How many Nigerian politicians could stand on the street and walk, carry his own bag, without the people stoning him like Peter Obi is doing? How many, or Shawara is doing? How many of them? Nigerians know who the real deals are, and they know who the thieves are. And the thieves are going to get their comeuppance pretty soon. That's all I have to say. I don't know what else to say because the people have tried everything. Organization, protest. The state has marshaled her goons to put, pay to all these measures. So if you take away everything from a man, he's going to resist someday. And that's what the politicians are doing, unfortunately. I don't know. But never stop agitating. Never stop agitating. We need only 3% of our population. And again, one practical thing you can do is this platform, get more people to join here and listen to what we are saying. Now listen to your pain. Okay? Because we are only a few people. Get more people to tune in. Let them listen to the pain of Nigerians who have seen that things could be done better, who have seen that things work better elsewhere. We can do it. We are not stupid. And we are not all cowards. So it's a practical thing. We can start here to start organizing, and then someday it's going to spill over into the society. And the people in the diaspora, you have your work cut out for you. That Israel is what it is today is because of the Jewish diaspora. So our diaspora has a lot to do. Just keep talking.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Franklyne. I will go to Ovie, then I'll go up to Forefathers and the people that came in. Ovie, go ahead. Your question.
I'm conflicted. I'm truly conflicted. But no go ask my incoming governor if you don't know the meaning. Me never know. But I'm conflicted because since Dudov don't start this program, he has only brought 3 guests. I'm not saying 3 types of guests, I say 3 guests. The first one was Dr. Franklyne. Since that day, I begin to look at Rudolph with one kind of eye. I say, this guy is not as innocent as I thought. The second guest was Dr. Ogbunwezeh. Then I said, okay, this is not a joke. Dr. Rudolph is serious. So when he told me that Dr. Franklyne Ogbunwezeh is coming for the 3rd time, I was prepared. So I didn't prepare to come and ask question or any challenge. I just decided to go into my archive and put so many theories that I used to have just to come and check them off. Fortunately enough, now only 20% I don't do. That's why I'm conflicted. I'm angry that the time is not enough, but I'm happy that I've gotten more than I came for. Now, you said you are scared of nuke, you are terrified. I will say to you what John Mishama told Jeffrey Sachs. He said, my heart is with you, but my mind is with the reality of how international politics works. So, doctor, you are scared. My heart is with you, but my head is in South China Sea. not even in Russia, as we spend so much talking about Russia. On your, you alluded to the what Professor Nomchansi says about President of America being a war criminal since World War II. I think Jim Powell, the author of Wilson War, will disagree with you in the same, not necessarily disagree, but he will say that American presidency's first World War, which is Woodrow Wilson, since World War One, not World War II, because since that time they gave us Hitler, they gave us Lenin, they gave us Stalin, and they gave us World War II. And we are talking about World War III in our lifetime. So it's dated back since World War One, and that book will actually change everything the way you see 21st century, because that was the changing game. And that actually takes me to my question. You said a lot about pretty much everything I came for and I became here more for, but you I don't know if you deliberately alluded the fintech revolution in China, which I will say is the foundation of the new world that we are seeing. So I'm wondering that you don't recognize that revolution, or there's a reason that you are not factoring that part in. Then on my second question is what is the future of Germany? Because since that's where you're based, or in Europe generally, because as far as I'm concerned, they are as irrelevant to the world that we live in today, just like any nation in Africa. Because one, they have lost out of the green tech and the big tech. So what is the future of Germany and in Europe in general? Or most importantly, why do you ignore that fintech revolution that is taking place in China that is actually making America to re-strategize their world hegemony that started 8 years ago? Which I would like to say, Rudolph, those three images that you presented, they are not three in the world today. There are only three countries. There's China, there's America, and there's the rest of us, including America, Germany, France, Nigeria. We are all one country now. Then we have China and then America. So, but doctor,
All
that's
right.
what I say.
Okay, I will jump into it straight. I never shied away from the revolution that the Chinese have brought, that is trying to change the face of the earth today, the Chinese. And that's why the United States are spoiling for war against China. And the trade war has already started. It started now with Biden, started with Trump. Even under Obama, we already saw inklings of that. Okay, Huawei, the Chinese behemoth, was being sanctioned everywhere. And then America refuses to make sure that China gets the chips that they need for their technology, and then all whatnot. Today, China is producing more electric cars than the rest of the world, more solar energy. So China has taken over. Okay, it was 5 years ago that I told my friend, you better start learning Chinese. The Chinese are coming. Okay, and they have arrived. China has arrived. China was so very powerful that they started their Silk Road Initiative. Do you know how much money that takes, and how much courage in yourself as a powerful nation? Even though the West has been trying to sabotage them each step of the way, but China is still moving. And then they will come and tell us, why do you think that Goodluck Jonathan was kicked out? People think it's because of, no, because he was leaning towards the Chinese. The Chinese were handling almost every other contract in Abuja under his tenure. Nigeria, the West needed Nigeria as a bridgehead against China in Africa. That was how Buhari got to power. That is how the continuation of what you're seeing in Tinubu at this moment. So the international, the global, the geopolitics is a very high level one. So I wasn't ignoring China. China is a given. We cannot wish them away anymore. Europe knew that as well. Early this year, China loaded a whole ship of BYD cars, dumped them in the heart of Europe. And Europe is just scrambling to find laws to prevent them from selling their electric vehicles. Although Europe is saying, we need green technology, we need renewables. And the Chinese came, here is it. Okay, so China is already there. China has been the shop, the workshop of the world all this while. But right now, China is a power in its own right, and that's why they're not taking instructions from anybody. Watch what their foreign minister, the speech he delivered that they just concluded the United Nations General Assembly meeting. China is waxing strong, and the United States is doing everything to sabotage whatever the Chinese. So this is great power politics. I wasn't ignoring that. Not only that, it wasn't the major thrust of our politics. This Chinese Politburo, this is why I always tell people, when people tell me, in 2015, I was invited to Vienna to speak to European diplomats at the European Diplomatic Academy. That was when I mentioned, the video is on YouTube, when I was telling them that they said that democracy is necessary for development. I don't agree with that. China is a perfect example. China pulled 700 million people out of poverty within 30 years. The only country that's ever done it in human history, China. 700 million people marched out of poverty within 30 years. No other country on this planet has ever done that. So I am not, the fintech revolution in China is taking the world by storm. The West is not swallowing it real good. There is a bitter pill for them to swallow. But empires come and go. It was at the end of the Second World War, the British Empire, the sun set on it actually, because they would never believe that the sun would ever set on them. The sun actually set on them. So they are now just a poodle dog to the United States. And that was the rise of the US. The US seems to be handing over that baton to China at the moment, but they are doing it unwillingly. Okay. And that may be a cause of a serious conflict. And they are using Taiwan to bait China into a major conflict, and which the Chinese seems to be wisely ignoring at the moment until they are ready. The role of Europe. You have to know that after the Second World War, when the Allied forces conquered Germany, Germany became virtually a colony of the United States. So Germany was decapitated. Okay. In Germany alone, Germany has over 6-7 United States military bases. Ramstein, Grafenwöhr, Stuttgart, they used to even have very close to my house. So Germany, America, German foreign policy is determined by the United States. You see, even European foreign policy. You saw that in the Ukraine. Putin doesn't want to dialogue with Europe. Putin wants to dialogue with the United States. This is the power. This is the power that tells Europe what to do. So politically, Europe has always been an appendage of the United States. Okay. When it comes to the economy, German economy at the moment is not doing well. And because Germany is an appendage of Europe, the Germans allowed the Americans to sabotage the Nord Stream from where they were getting cheap gas to run their economy. And then Putin, they thought they were inflicting pain on Putin. They never knew that they were inflicting pain on themselves. So, and we are all feeling that at the moment. So the cheap gas we were getting from Russia is no longer coming. We were being forced by the United States to buy their fracked gas at a cheaper price, at a higher price, and the Indians are now buying from Russia cheaper and coming to sell to Europe at a higher price, and we are forced to buy that and shut the fuck up because we cannot go against, the nuclear umbrella of the United States. So that's what it is. So where America goes, we see that even in the case of Israel. If America says we are supporting Israel, everybody comes lock in step. So America is what determines European foreign policy. It's a shame that such a proud continent will be an appendage of a country that is not up to 300 years old. Europe is a very old civilization. Europe has been around. Europe has seen all of it. But unfortunately, empires come and go. The Egyptians were once a great empire that lasted more than 3,000 years. But they are gone. They are just footnotes in history today. So empires will come and go. So the Chinese have arrived. So welcome to the new Chinese age. So if you don't learn Chinese, you are losing out.
All right. Thank you, Ovie. Thank you so much. And let me go up. I'll come back down. Let me go to forefathers.
Greetings, Dr. Rudolph. Thank you for having me. Greetings to everyone on the panel, and special greetings to the Professor Ogbunwezeh.
Franklyne.
I'm not a professor. I'm just
Okay.
Ogbunwezeh is okay. The doctor is just an academic title. I wrote a doctoral thesis and then I like, but Ogbunwezeh is okay for me. I don't like that attachment of titles to anything. It unsettles me to no end. Please.
No, thank you for that. I find it hard to criticize anything you've said because about 99% I agree with them, with just a little bit of nuances here and there. The British are not masters. Because I worry that the young people, when they hear men or like people like us call other people masters, they start thinking, why are we calling them masters? Well, they are masters. They are the British colonizers, whatever we want to call them. Then regarding education, you said something about education. The reason why I don't often talk about education is because we've been hearing about this for a long time, and the security has to come first. At the moment, you've said it. You said it many times about how the others have security and all the rest. We don't have it, and because if you don't have it, whoever has got it will undermine you. You mentioned something about the Renaissance period, which includes the Enlightenment of Europe. And during that same period was when the so-called father of political science, Niccolo Machiavelli, stated that without security of a nation, nothing else would work. Nothing will function in that nation. He even went on to say the most secure nations are the freest ones. He described them then. And today, the freest nations in the world, are they not the most powerful ones? And some of the most secure ones. He used Switzerland as an example at that time. And today, when you look on the map, Switzerland is one of the richest countries in the world and one of the most secure. These people build underground bunkers for their entire citizen, and they've not been to war for 200 years. And it tells you something that if you don't take your security seriously, your children's future are completely undermined. And I fear that our people don't know that enough. The question I wanted to ask is that how is it we don't seem to be aware that security is paramount to any nation? And is there any, because I believe that we are not ready. Our people have not experienced the kind of things that make them take their security seriously. I did a research on this and I found out that any nation like Nigeria that is considered strategic cannot emerge without confronting people that want to keep it down. You cannot. Every single one of them emerge had to confront that. In the small, even the smaller nations have to go through that hell. The question I want to ask is, how can we do it? How can we have a new thinking that others have never done, that can have us emerge in this world without having to confront any of the powers in the world? Thank you.
Thank you, forefathers. Franklyne, hold on. Before you answer, do you want to take a break? And then or after you answer this question, we take a break and then we continue.
Okay. After this, I will just take a little break and then just ease myself, and then I'll be back for further questions. I am ready to take every question today. Forefathers, thank you very much. You made the whole point that you have made. Security is paramount because, come to think of it, the fundamental human right is the right to life. If your life is not, I mentioned Thomas Hobbes, who talked about the fear of violent death. That's why we created society, according to his social contract philosophy. Well, so yeah, you mentioned Switzerland. They built bunkers. Not only that, security is a sine qua non for anything you can do in human society. Because if you are very busy, okay, fearing for your life, you cannot lead a settled existence that will, enable you to attain every other thing. Philosophy itself even started in leisure, that these people are secure enough to sit down, look at the heavens and say, I think there is a creator out there. Every development is built on the security of a society. You are absolutely correct. There is nothing to add or deduct from that. that we have not taken our security seriously. The point is, okay, if you watch, there's a movie, a very brilliant movie made by what's his name? This guy that played Braveheart. The title of this movie is Apocalypto. Apocalypto. The Spaniards arrived in their, in South America, and then when they arrived, the tribes have been hunting each other. One tribe has been hunting the other, and then slaughtering them for their hearts, and then so this the Inca Empire that succeeded in subjugating every other one, instead of creating alliances to secure itself against external threats, was already rotten when the Spaniards arrived. And when they arrived, they just knocked on the door, pushed, and the whole society collapsed. And that's how they conquered Latin America. So any society that doesn't place premium on her security will go extinct. Okay? And so you can understand why the major powers spend a lot of money on their military budget. In Nigeria, the point lies in that one, there are so many, a doctor can sit down and analyze what the problem. There are so many things. We haven't gotten this philosophy that even security is important. We don't have it. Those in power, their care is, we have oil. The resources keep coming at the end of every month. We just distribute them, sign contracts, and then go on a foreign trip. Take our wives and mistresses to shopping in Paris or wherever. Talk to any Nigerian politician. Talk to a German politician. He hires university researchers to prepare his position papers for any position he takes on any subject. Ask yourself, in our Senate, how many researchers, how many are employed by our lawmakers to research on the bills and the positions they are going to take? Security professionals, how many of them are employed? There's only security professionals employed by our people are those that will be driving the citizens out of the road so that their cars and their retinue of convoys will pass through. Building a society is an intellectual exercise. Making a society work is an intellectual exercise. So it requires people who can sit down and think. There are so many aspects: energy security, food security, physical security, military security. All those things are architectures that we really need to build. Tafa Balogun was a police commissioner, police inspector general of police in Nigeria under Obasanjo. Obasanjo had to fire him because he was embezzling up to close to 130 billion naira police funds. A security chief. Ihe Jirika was accused under Jonathan that they were selling weapons to Boko Haram. Our security personnel. Nigerian police have been accused severally of selling weapons to armed robbers. And what do you think they will do to a foreign nation that wants to sack Nigeria? They will just sell Nigeria to them. So you could see the characters that have manned sensitive portfolios in our governments across them, in our security architecture across them. There was something profound that one man that I have a cause to hate said, Hamza al-Mustafa. He said that any agitation, any insurgency that lasts more than 3 days in Nigeria, that the government is aware of it and has a hand in it. And he is correct. Either through culpable ignorance or because the government has not done any serious thinking on how to move the country forward. You are absolutely right. I have not. Security is the basis of it. Peter Obi said that if he got to power, he would tackle security on day one. I have expected that Tinubu would declare a state of emergency on the security sector. Read the Riot Act to his service chiefs. I have not heard that. I have not heard a policy addressed to the nation on security. How can we start getting it right when the person who is supposed to be in charge is not even thinking about these things? If you don't have security, your economy will not even progress. People should know that if they hurt you, that they're not gonna have it easy, and they will leave you in peace. My last Facebook entry 2 days ago was when I was arguing about this, my theory of hostage, and I said, if Africans should start trying to acquire nuclear weapons, because if you have the teeth, every other nation will allow you in peace to develop. Without that, they won't. because you have the resources they require. They will always find people to divide and conquer you with. But if they know that you have teeth, they will respectfully steer clear. Dogs do that. If a dog sees a big dog, it barks and barks and barks. When the big dog, it shifts the other way. So without security, we are going nowhere. You're absolutely right on that. I can only recommend that if Nigerian authorities are listening to us, they would listen to people who are making sense. They will listen to your telephones if you are trying to say things or criticize the government. But to listen to people who are making sense, they will not. So if they are listening, I would recommend that they should start thinking about, ask our president to give us a policy paper, a policy address on security for the Nigerian state. Where are we going? What are we doing? And then he should make it actionable. He should get researchers. He should get people who are versed in this area like yourself and get them to sit down in a think tank. Do you know why do you know why the German government gave me a scholarship? Because they put me in a think tank, what they call Zukunftswerkstatt, future workshop, where we sat down to think about the energy policy of Germany for the next 50 years. They brought people from all over the world they believe to be brilliant. Every sector you can think of: law, philosophy, energy, security. Our job was to sit down and think about energy policy for the next 50 years, not today. That's how I got my scholarship to come to Germany. So which African government is doing something like that? These guys are thinking far ahead of us, and we are competing for the same world and the same resources with them. Don't let me talk about China.
All right. So let's
take a break.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we are going to continue. I promise you, he will take your questions if you are in the studio. And I see Mama Echo, when you are done with your phone call, we'll bring you in. So let's take a few minutes break. Thank you.
Onye ọma zoro bio, akwa nwa zoro bio, Max ịbịa bunyere okwanụ m n'ofube n'azụ ụlaga n'ịbịa zugo.